It's a nice and a pleasant morning. All great things need a great beginning. 18th of November 2022, which means today, is one of the most important days in the academic calendar of the Sri Palee campus. Today, Sri Palee campus academics and postgraduate students will present their best recent research works to the academia. So welcome all of you who are with us in the Sri Palee campus premises and those who are joining with us from all the corners of the world. So it's official inauguration. So it's time. Annual Research Symposium 2022, Sri Palee campus, University of Colombo. Annual Research Symposium of the University of Colombo, CMAP 2022, encourages academics and postgraduate students of the Sri Palee campus, the University of Colombo, to meet and exchange ideas and research findings on creative and innovative approaches in media and performing arts. Innovation and creativity has been essential elements throughout the history of the development of media and performing arts. With the advancement of information communication technology, during the last 2 decades, the form of innovation and creativity has been changing steadily. To understand the landscape of contemporary media and performing art fields and to explain its developmental trends, one can gain insight from the studies and innovation and creativity. Innovation and creativity are new ideas, new concepts to the socio-cultural structure. So, let me the academic motivation of the year. Sub-theme of Annual Research Symposium 2022, Sri Palee campus, University of Colombo. Creative and innovative approaches in mass media and performing arts. So, let's move forward with the proceedings of the inauguration ceremony. Lux in Latin, life in English, are local in Sinhala. Life is always used as a symbol of knowledge. Every culture has its own way of beginning an occasion or a ceremony. But let's all stand for the national anthem.
Sri Lanka Mata, Apa Sri Lanka, Namo. Apa අප ශ්‍රී ලංකා නමෝ 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 මාතා අප ශ්‍රී ලංකා නමෝ 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 මාතා
Annual Research Symposium 2022. It's time for the introduction. I believe who is the best person here to officially welcome all of you and give a brief introduction about Annual Research Symposium 2022. So, without further delay, I cordially invite our guest of honor today, Dr. Pratibha Mahanamahuva, Rector, Sri Palee Campus, University of Colombo, to address the gathering.
Hi everyone. Vanakkam. Assalamu alaikum. Ni hao. Today is a great day for us. Every day is very important for our University of Colombo Sri Palee campus. Today it is very significant event. This is an international conference. Sri Lanka, Colombo University, one and only extension is Sri Palee campus, located in a very beautiful area, which is where Guru Rabindranath Tagore inception this place long time ago. And also for the leftist, where Suryamal movement started or began from this place. So in this land, it has given a lot of artists, media specialists, not only for Sri Lanka, to the whole world. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Senior Professor H.D. Karunaratne, actually today had some important event and gave blessing for me today for this conference. And also is always supporting Sri Palee campus, research and innovative. And also our former rectors are here, Professor Ranjani Tiarachi, Professor Tudor Veerasinghe, my heads of the departments, Dr. Sudat, Mass Media Head, and then we have Ms. Chaturika Nimalachandra, Head of Performing Arts, and Senior Assistant Librarian. I'm glad to say she won the 2 Senate Awards 2020 and 2021. And online, we are meeting Ms. Kumesh Prabhashini. What another, it's online, another Senate Award. And also Mr. Amila Lokumanage commendation. So this time, Sri Palee is, moving high in academic as well as sports. This time in the University of Colombo sports, we got some medals. So that means it's a very balanced culture we are having. One side, we have our academic, sports, and creative. And Sri Palee campus students perform very well in the main event conference. And the other senior lecturers, Professor Sri Ranjan and Dr. Pradeep Veerasinghe, Assistant Registrar, our Permanent Student Councillor, Ms. Kalni Dharmasil, and Mr. Dimel, Ms. Sajita, Ms. Amali Pereira. So all supporting us. So we should work as a one bunch without any issues. So today, the Sri Palee campus, the main theme, creative and innovative approaches in mass media and performing arts. There are millions of scientists in the world, but their mind always not relaxed. So the solution is this, performing arts, which is having Sri Lanka, one of the major places, Sri Palee campus. The one and only mass media degree, bachelor's degree, awarded by Department of Mass Media. Very soon, they will come as a faculty. We have already done our process, and I have submitted the documents to University of Grant Commission. Actually, this campus has been set up as a in 1990s with 2 faculties, but with some, lacunas. It has not, but now it is coming into a greater extent. So today, why research is important? Research is important. It must be practically oriented. Today we are in COVID-19 new normal. In the new normal period, what we must do for the society? How Palee campus linked with economic development? How Palee campus can give an example for other universities to become? So now we are living in the digital world, digitalization. And also all the information today transforming with the global scenario, all are within 1 second. We are meeting all our, keynote speaker as well as other internationally. You can be linked in one place. This is called globalization. But there are 2 ends. Some are not agree with the globalization, which will be really affecting the developing countries. It's another argument. So today, it's my great pleasure to welcome you all for this annual research symposium 2022. And continuously we have done. And also, we have introduced the Communicology Journal. The journal, I invite all our academics to send their articles. And we are planning another student symposium that is also very soon we are coming up for. We have got a lot of other university papers also. So this year, the theme of the symposium, as I said, innovative approaches. What are innovative approaches? That we have to do some research and see. Now we should see mass media. Social media can create, destroy one's life. We have seen Sri Lanka cricketer, who is in Australia. Everywhere it's spreading. It can be fake news, it can be hate news. How can it be controlled by basically the Facebook company or the Twitter or the other company? So we have to be very careful. So when we are sending a person's, it can be a private life, the data protection at Sri Lanka we have. We have to always see ethics. I believe rather than law, medical journalism ethics are very important. Are we following ethics? That's why our experts are here. They are teaching our students how to critically analyze and also ethically review it, as well as you have to give the correct information disseminated. If it is in the print media, you can go to, if anything, any defamation happening, definitely you can go to press council is there. And also if it is a digital media, the host is in Sweden, maybe in another country, how can we, then you have to basically, censor that. I was in China. China invited me for their one of the human rights conference. I was in Beijing. They took me to a building, Weibo. China having another type of Facebook called Weibo. They asked me to go store by store. One sports, one entertainment, one research, super. All in one building. So I'm eyewitness in Beijing when I went for that human rights conference. They invited me and told me how we are disseminating. More than Facebook, members, Weibo, many members are there. But they are a little bit monitoring that. Yes, monitoring can be done, but private life, you should not monitor other than that. So our keynote speaker will address most of the issues today. And it is where Professor Zhu Lifan from School of Information Management, Wuhan University. Wuhan is very famous to the world because with one word, it is the most searchable word in the web. And also, it's from Wuhan University, China, People's Republic. And also I like mostly Ms. Kumish Prabhas, who started this program, and suddenly she had to go for leave from our campus to higher studies. Now Ms. Trulini Batuangala got that heavyweight, and she had done a superb work. So this conference actually giving extra value for mass media, extra value for performing arts. That's how. So I like Palee campus flag to be in top place, give an example for student discipline, as well as research, as well as some practical oriented research we need. Because today, everyone is, very tight, not 8-hour work, maybe 12-hour work. But if you listen to beautiful music, performing arts can relax our mind. And also, it's very high frustration among university students. Some of the university students committed suicide because of heavy workload. If we have inculcated them to listen some music from Palee campus, this may never happen. So therefore, I invite all of you to have a wonderful session today, and experts are presenting their papers, panel chairs are there. එනිසා මේ ශ්‍රීපාලි කැම්පස් එක අද ඉතා වැදගත් සම්දිකට ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. ජනමාධ්‍ය ගැන කතා කරනකොට විශේෂයෙන්ම ඒකේ සමාජ මාධ්‍ය තුලින් වෙන කෙනෙක්ව විවේචනය සාධාරණ විවේචනයක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, සත්‍ය තොරතුරු වෙන්න පුළුවන්, අසත්‍ය තොරතුරු වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක ඩිසිමිනේට් වෙලා යනවා. අද ගන්න ප්‍රින්ට් මීඩියා එක නම් ඒක ගොඩක් වෙලාවට එඩිටර් කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා, චීෆ් එඩිටර් ඉන්නවා. අපි ලිපි ලියනකොට යාර දෙන්නම් චීෆ් එඩිටර් බලන දැන් මාස් මීඩියා වල මේ මාස් මීඩියා කියන්නේ සෝෂල් මීඩියා වල එහෙම දෙයක් නෑ. අපිට ඕන දේ අපිට ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න පුළුවන්. අපිට ඒ තුලින් වෙන දේවල් තව වශයෙන් හේට් ස්පීච් එක නම් නවත්තන FB එකේ වෙනම කණ්ඩායමක් ඉන්න එක බලන නිසා අපි ලංකාව තුළ වෙන සංවර්ධනයේට ඉතාම වැදගත් දේ තමයි මේ ප්‍රසංගික කලාව සහ මේ දෙක එකට අපි ගමන් කරනවා. ඒ ප්‍රසංගික කලාව තුලින් කෙනෙකුගේ සිත් සතන් බොහොම විදියට සනසන්න පුළුවන්. අද හැන්දෑවෙත් අපේ වැඩසටහනක් තියෙනවා. මට AW ඩිපාර්ට්මන්ට් මතක් කරා ඒ වැඩසටහන. ඉතින් අපි ඇත්තටම එකට එකතු වෙමු, එකට ගමන් කරමු. ස්තුතියි. වණක්කම්. share feeling. Thank you. Director. Yes, indeed, it's a journey of creativity and innovation. Our chief guest, Senior Professor H.T. Karnaratna, Vice Chancellor, University of Colombo. Dear sir, it's an honor for us, someone like you, who has an excellent account of academic achievements with high caliber, is with us. So I cordially invite our chief guest, Senior Professor H.T. Karnaratna, Vice Chancellor, University of Colombo, to join with us.
Very good morning. As the Vice Chancellor of the University of Colombo, delighted to address you in this morning when we are celebrating the publications as the annual research symposium of the Palee campus, University of Colombo, year 2022. The University of Colombo organized this year's annual research symposium as 13th annual research symposium, and we have 9 faculties, 9 institutes. They almost all have organized research conferences by now. So why we organize research conference? To make the platform for paper presenters, those who have done research, to present their findings and methodologies in an acceptable manner for the academia. So the most important thing here, we need to understand that the research is the one of the most important activities of researchers. There are 921 researchers in the University of Colombo. Out of that, 30 are associated with the Palee campus. Among the 30 academics in Palee campus, there are only 2 professors and 16 lecturers. Others are professional lecturers and lecturers. So, as our duty in the university, we need to engage in research. The university rank will depend on the research, and campus rank also will depend on the research abilities and the publications taking place. So, those who submitted papers for annual research conference, I congratulate you, and meanwhile, I urge you not to stop as a conference paper. What you have written, you can develop by obtaining the comments giving the participants to this conference, and you can develop those ideas and submit it to an index journal. Not only journal publication, that we know we have converted the research outcomes finally into one of the two dimensions. One is the product launch, whether we are making new product based on your research. The second is policy making, whether you are trying to develop a new policy based on your research. So therefore, innovation and digitalization is one of the important areas. That is why year 2022, the University of Colombo selected a topic which is the digitalization and innovation in higher education sector with the challenges we are facing. So the higher education sector has been facing many challenges like East attack, COVID-19 pandemic, economic crisis, political crisis, social crisis, and many problems. All these areas, the research and innovation are the very important things we have to do. We have to engage for the betterment of the people in our society. So in the 2022 Annual Research Symposium, Palee has selected a topic, creative and innovative approaches in mass media and the performing arts. So according to the subtopic selected by the Palee campus, innovation and creativity have been essential elements throughout the history of the development of media and performing arts. Creativity is the lifeblood of the media and performing arts industries, with the achievement of information and communication technology during the past 2 decades. The form of innovation and creativity has been changing steadily. To understand the landscape of contemporary media and performing arts fields and to explain its development trends. One can gain insight from innovation and creativity perspective studies. Innovation and creativity are new ideas and concepts added to the scale economy's structure. Thus, it works more towards the betterment of the society. It includes production, innovation, press innovation, and precision innovation, pragmatic innovation, and the social innovation. Motivation and creativity are changes in production, distribution, advertising, communication, ownership, management, organizational culture, human resource partnerships, and audience. Of course, likewise, innovation and creativity are changes in the political economy, media, and the performing arts. So we know Palee campus is established to cater for non-inclusive people in the University of Colombo. So we know that the research is very important. So this year's research conference theme is very important because entire education system is challenging and changing, so therefore we need to work hard to get the maximum benefit from the University of Colombo. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear sir. Yes, you are the strength of our team. Thank you, dear sir. Once again, Senior Professor H.T. Karunaratna, Vice Chancellor, University of Colombo. It's time for the keynote speech. Keynote speech of a research symposium is one of the main important events which makes a remarkable significance to the entire symposium. The keynote speaker of the Annual Research Symposium 2022, Palee Campus, University of Colombo, is Professor Sue Fong. She is joining with us from the other end of the world. I exactly don't know the time soon, but welcome, Professor, for the conference. She is a professor in the Department of Publishing Science School of Information Management, Wuhan University, Republic of China. Before the keynote speech, let's watch the introduction video of the keynote speaker produced by Odu Vishwamurid, Sri Palee campus. Palee is the director of the Institute of Digital Publishing at Wuhan University and the former head of the Department of Publishing Science at the School of Information Management of Wuhan University. She was awarded the title of New Century Talents Program of the Ministry of Education of China. New Talents Program, the National Press and the Publishing Industry, the National for Badges of Talents and the National 10,000 Talents Program. She is the Deputy Director of the Academic Committee of the Semantic Publishing and Knowledge Services Key Laboratory and the Trusted Digital Copyright Ecology and Standards Key Laboratory of the State Press and Publication Administration from 2003 to 2004. She was a visiting scholar at Palee University in the United States, and from 2005 to 2008, she worked as a postdoctoral researcher in the field of digital publishing and scientific communication at Wuhan University. Her main research areas are digital publishing and new media, digital media narratives, aesthetic and publishing and scientific communication, digital education, publishing and communication. She is one of the pioneers in the fields of digital publishing and new media, and also digital media narratives in China. She was the principal investigator of projects sponsored by the National Social Science Foundation of China, as well as the National Natural Science Foundation of China. She has published more than 20 monographs and textbooks and about 180 papers in journals both in Chinese and in English, and has extensive academic connections and influence in the publishing academia and industry at home and abroad. Non-fungible rights in China, dynamics and trends. I cordially invite our keynote speaker for the Annual Research Symposium 2022 for her keynote deliverance. Professor Sulu Fran, Department of Publishing Science, School of Information Management, Wuhan University, Republic of China. Let's join her speech.
Okay, thank you. Could you just let me share the screen? Yeah, the moderator, the host.
Yeah, Professor. So we are okay with that. So now, actually.
Okay, now, yeah, I can do it. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First, I would like to express my deep appreciation and gratitude to Senior Lecturer Ms. Ruvini Batuwangala for inviting me to deliver this keynote address at the Sri Palee campus Annual Research Symposium 2022. Also, I would like to convey my sincere gratitude to Chief Guest, Senior Professor H.D. Karunaratne, Vice Chancellor of University of Colombo, and Guest of Honor, Dr. Pratibha Mahanamahiwa, Director, Sri Palee campus, for giving me this opportunity to share our observations and thoughts about new media and arts phenomena in PR China with fellow faculty and students of the University of Colombo. Last but not least, I would also like to thank Ms. Kumash Prabhashini, a wonderful teacher at the University of Colombo and an excellent PhD candidate at Wuhan University. She opened the exchange between the two universities in the disciplines of mass media, publishing, and performing arts. And in 2019, Professor Renjin Hatirakiki delivered a great speech in the 6th International Conference on Publishing Industry and Publishing Education in the Digital Era held at Wuhan University. Today, I came to University of Colombo for your annual academic event. I sincerely hope that this scholarly connection and friendship will last long, and that our symposium will be a great success. Today, the title of my speech is Non-Fungible Rights in China, Dynamics and Trends. I will discuss the NFR in China from 3 points: origins, backgrounds, and dynamics behind NFR, and the future scenario of NFR in China. First, the origins and the background. As the cryptocurrency market picked up in late 2020, the NFT market saw explosive growth and became the most popular fintech application and crypto asset in the following year. NFT, just as we know, is an abbreviation of non-fungible token, which is a unique digital object certified on the blockchain or distributed ledger. NFT, based on blockchain technology, can play an important role in certifying digital assets, which could help activate the digital content market and is in line with the development trend of digital economy. According to the nonfungible.com, the volume of dollars traded in the NFT market in 2021 is nearly 17.7 billion US dollars, an increase of more than 21,000% year over year. The volume of sales reached over 27 million, an increase of 1,836% year on year. And Technavio, a global technology research firm, predicted the NFT market would be expected to increase by 147 billion US dollars by 2026, and the market's growth would accelerate at a CAGR of over 35%. 43% of the market's growth would originate from Asia Pacific, with China being one of the major markets for NFT. NFT is based on a decentralized public chain, which is prone to regulatory gaps. Its essence is tokens, and the transaction currency is Bitcoin, which could easily induce financial criminal activities. So in September 2021, the People's Bank of China and other departments issued a notice specifying that virtual currency-related business activities are illegal in China. Yet, as we mentioned earlier, NFT does have its own unique value and functionality. As a result, China has introduced and practiced the so-called NFR. It can also be said that, in a way, NFR is a Chinese version of NFT for now. NFR, namely non-fungible rights, is a digital asset or a digital representation of ownership of a unique asset based on blockchain technology, which records digital ownership of physical or digital assets and constitutes a unique certificate of authenticity. Both NFT and NFR are unique digital objects authenticated on the blockchain or distributed ledger with characteristics of trust, auditability, transparency, tamper-proof, and anonymity, which can provide digital asset proof for unique assets. However, there are many differences as well between NFR and NFT either, just as listed in this table. NFR has many application scenes, such as performing arts industry. The performing arts industry is rich in IP resources, such as market-tested hit plays, music festivals, and well-known artists, which can be source of creation for digital collections. And due to the impact of the COVID-19 epidemic, the performing arts industry has also begun to focus on online content production and distribution, trying to connect with young audiences through new channels, of which digital collections are a good choice. As you can see, this is the very popular Chinese dance poetry play, Only the Screen, and one of the digital collections derived from this drama. It was also the first digital collection for the performing art industry in China. And since then, many symphony orchestras, art theaters, festival brands, etc., have started to issue digital collections as well. And the show tickets can be cast as NFRs for sale too, with advantages beyond traditional ticketing. This is an NFR ticket of 2022 Asian Digital Art Exhibition. And news that record major events and important historical moments are naturally valuable for a collection. So NFR is widely used in the news media industry in the form of digital collections. This is Xinhua News Agency's 2021 Memory Tree News digital collection. And this is like the Central China TV station, Spring Festival themed 3-dimension digital collection Baby Tiger. Then what are the dynamics behind the NFR development in China? Let's look at the stages of NFR development in China, which lasts short, but there have been full of twists and turns. NFT exploded globally in 2021, and the Chinese market moved with it. The MetaStream Lab took the lead in pioneering the Chinese blockchain-based digital asset copyright trading in April, sparking the development or even chaos of NFT nationwide. Then in September, the central government's regulatory policies and the directives on virtual currencies came out intensively. And in October, the white paper proposed the concept of NFR to downplay the connection between NFT and the virtual currency, which was once seen as a very smart solution. Then a large number of digital collectibles platforms have emerged. And in addition to IT companies, many state-owned enterprises and official media organizations are involved as well, such as Chengdu TV, Xinhua News Agency, and People's Daily, etc. According to an According to incomplete statistics, 746 new digital collectibles platforms emerged in the first half of this year, and the number of digital collectibles issued in a single month began to exceed the million level since February. And the volume of circulation in May was higher as nearly 5 million. As the number of platforms and digital collections continues to surge, the recognition of the value of digital collections and the growth rate of users is declining. Many digital collections have fallen into a stagnant state, and some small and medium-sized platforms have begun to reduce their digital collectibles business. The market gradually shifted from a seller's market to a buyer's market. Along with the retreat of the market and the uncertainty of national policies and regulations, many digital collectibles platforms chose to shut down their collectibles business. On August 16, 2022, Tencent announced that Phantom Core would stop issuing digital collectibles. As the head platform in China, the shutdown of Phantom Core indicates that the development of China's digital collectibles industry has entered a calm period. NFR is now mainly reflected in the digital collection industry in China, and the tree of the industry can be divided into 4 layers. Like the infrastructure layer, there are many companies in this layer. Trading platform layer, authoring and distributing layer, and the user layer. And the underlying infrastructure of NFR is mainly consortium blockchain. It's a little bit different from NFT. NFT is mainly based on public chain. And since China has a filing system for building such chains, any organization can develop its own blockchain, resulting in a large number of chain providers. Among them, there are both consortium chains of internet giants such as Alibaba's Ant Chain, Tencent's Zhixing Chain, etc. There are also consortium chains of startups such as FunChain, or blockchains with official backgrounds such as Xinban blockchain, supported by the Sichuan provincial government for construction. According to statistics, there are nearly 1,000 digital collectibles distribution platforms in China as of July 12, 2022. And some of these platforms are affiliated with large IT companies, while others are backed by state-owned enterprises and traditional media organizations. The content forms of NFT distribution platforms abroad include PGC, UGC, PUGC, while Chinese digital collection distribution platforms are mainly PGC, which mainly develop IP derivatives through cooperation with well-known institutions and artists, and individual users cannot create and upload by themselves. According to the types of rights and interests granted to users, the distribution models of digital collection distribution platform are mainly divided into 5 categories: pure digital collection model, collection plus transfer model, second market model, equity, empowerment model and a digital copyright model. At present, there are three main ways to generate digital collections in China. First, digital mapping of physical objects. Second, born digital works. Third, digital works fused with physical objects or rights, just like this Oriental wonderful meal. 10 Mimi digital collection launched by Fangyuan Digital Collection, which also includes the physical rights and interests to visit Fantasyland for free throughout the year. At present, there are two main types of digital collection distribution ways in China. One type is like that the distributor distributes through the digital collection platform. The other type is that the platform itself is the distributor. The distributor can be copyright holder at the same time, casting their own copyrighted works into digital collections and then distributing them. Or it can be a licensee, digitally creating prototype works and casting them into digital collections after being licensed by the copywriting holder. As Chinese digital collections are stripped of their financial attributes, users buy digital collections more for personal appreciation and personal consumption. At the same time, the price of Chinese digital collectibles is relatively low, with 87% of the collectibles costing less than 100 yuan renminbi per unit. Therefore, the buyers of digital collections in China are not limited to investors, but cover a wide range of ordinary consumers. In particular, digital collectibles are sought after and loved by Generation Z consumers because the scarcity of digital collectibles, although which is man-made scarcity, can more or less meet their personalized consumption needs. So in summary, the development of NFR in China is based on blockchain technology, driven by market supply and demand, and governed by policies, laws, and regulations. Finally, let's look into the future of NFR in China briefly. At present, NFR in China is still in the early stage of development. But from the outlook of blockchain technology, the value of NFR as digital proof of interests, and the positive signals released by the Chinese government, which would develop in the following directions in the future, according to our research. First, returning to the essence of trustworthiness and openness of blockchain. Second, expanding application scenarios and facilitating the physical economy. Third, enhancing copyright attributes and empowering digital copyright protection and treating. Fourth, stricter regulation towards compliance. And my speech is over now. Thank you all very much for your attention and listening. And finally, I'd like to take you on a tour of my Wuhan University, very briefly, of course, in the clouds. And this is the main entrance of Wuhan University. And this is the main, the administration building of the university. And this one is the Cherry Garden student dormitory. And this one is like a modern style museum Wanling Museum. And welcome to Wuhan University. I will wait at Wuhan University for all our students and faculty from University of Colombo. Thank you again.
Thank you, Professor. I think it's interesting and enlightening, a great keynote speech. If there is any questions, if the gathering or the symposium members are here, like to ask from the professor, we have that facility. So if you have any questions, you can proceed it to the Professor Su Lifan, who is joining here with us from the China as our keynote speaker. Oh, great, sir.
Of course, Professor Su Lifan, good morning to you, and thank you very much for giving your consent to have you here as our keynote speaker today. And your explanation and your presentation was excellent. No doubt, I think everybody agrees with that. And this is not a question, but a bit of a clarification, of course. As we know, based on the theory of diffusion theory, the definition of innovation, to a country when they introduce a new technology, usually it takes a bit of time from the beginning to end. The introduction, and of course at the end to make anything successful. So according to that, could you kindly let us know, is it still being processed, or have you, of course, the government of China has succeeded in introducing this new technology to the country? Thank you very much.
So is it you mean want me to talk about my opinion, like the new technology is successful in China? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just like I showed the brief history, very brief history of NFR in China, because there are many things you can't just predict it in advance or do some prevent the risk in advance. So you just go and see. So we can see like the technology, they bring many working chances, working opportunities, and many money, and some new culture. But usually maybe there are many risks, you know, the regulatory gaps behind such kind of new technology, and which will lead to some like topic the all society focused because we care the benefits or the advantage or the disadvantage of such kind of technology. Yeah, so it's still need time for us to practice. Maybe sometimes we do something right, or sometimes we do something wrong. But anyway, we have to face such kind of technological challenge and go forward. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Is there any more questions?
Excellent keynote address. I just want to know the copyright. Basically, now you specifically said these type of innovations, creations, copyright. How long you have the copyright, and whether you need to register the copyright, or for the fair use, can we basically take certain aspects for fair use? Thank you.
Professor, once again, I think you have to unmute your mic. You have to unmute mic, Professor. Professor, you need to.
Yeah, the mute. Okay. Yeah, in fact, copyright is not my research field. I think it's a very specific field for researchers. But according to my knowledge, yeah, copyright things are very challenging issue in China, especially those digital content industry with the rise of this industry. And in China, but we can see even like the ordinary people, we just put more emphasis on the copyright because we think like the creative industry, the content industry, the base of such kind of industries is copyright. So maybe there's some piracy or something like that. Yeah, it's avoidable, but from the government and to the we ordinary people, yeah, we just cherish the good situation of copyright protection in China now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
I think the future of the humankind is with the sharing the knowledge. Once again, thank you, Professor, sharing your research and your knowledge with us so humbly. Once again, thank you, Professor Solifan.
Thank you.
Right. Annual Research Symposium 2022, as I once said before, is one of the most important events in the academic calendar of Sri Palee campus. The success of Annual Research Symposium was in her hands and her contribution and the guidance. Ms. Ruhi Batwangala, Conference Chair, Annual Research Symposium 2022, dear Madam, this moment is yours for the concluding remarks of the inauguration ceremony.
Thank you, Chatura. Once gentleman whispered, feeling thankfulness and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it. So today, I take this opportunity to put all my gratitude into words. I am on behalf of the organizing committee, convey deep regards and hearty thanks to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Senior Professor H.D. Karunaratne. Sir, thanks a lot for giving us precious time in your busy schedule. I also extend my thanks to our Rector of Sri Palee campus, Dr. Pratibha Mahanamaheva, for encouraging and inspiring us with your words and immense support. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for Professor Shu Lifang and Professor S. Raghuram for sharing with us your knowledge and creating space in our minds as the keynote speaker and the plenary speaker. We all inspired by your great words, dear professors. And I'm not forget to thanks to Dr. Pradeep N. Veerasinghe and Ms. Kumesh Prabhashini for connecting us with two such wonderful scholars as well. All the department heads and senior assistant librarian of Sri Palee campus accept my sincere thanks for your help and encouragement. And also, I would like to thank Deputy Registrar, Assistant Registrar, and Deputy Bursar and Curator of Sri Palee campus for your support and cooperation for ARS 2022. At the moment, our sincere gratitude also goes to all the members of the Advisory Committee, Review Committee, and the Editorial Committee for your constant help and guidance until the last moment of ARS 2020-22. My special thanks also goes to our panel chairs and panel members for sharing your expertise knowledge with us. And I am immensely thankful to my colleagues who worked behind the scene to make this event happen. Symposium Secretary, IT and Publicity Committee, Inauguration Committee. In this such a short time, you have made the best arrangements for this symposium. Thank you wholeheartedly. Finally, I also want to thank to all the academics and non-academics for cooperating in the Annual Research Symposium 2022. We are fortunate to thank the dedicated and well-motivated team who are aware of their tasks and very concerned about the results. The essence of fruits is always tested in the last, and we believe that the last will be the best. Once again, thank you for being with us, and it's being a great pleasure. Thank you all.
Thank you, dear Ms. Rovini Patwankala, Conference Chair. So with that, we have come to the conclusion of the inauguration ceremony of Annual Research Symposium 2022. So I think a hot tea is ready outside. So while we wait till the turn called. So all of you are welcome for the refreshments which is ready in the outside of the building, right? Thank you, all of you. Welcome back to the Annual Research Symposium 2022. Plenary speech will enlighten the entire audience in different direction. Professor S. Raghuram is our plenary speaker today. Professor Raghuram is the head of the Department of Media Studies, Faculty of Arts, University of Jaffna. Professor S. Raghuram. Before we move into the plenary speech, let's watch the introduction video of the plenary speaker produced by AV Unit, Sri Palee Campus. Professor S. Raghuram is the head of the Department of Media Studies at the University of Jaffna. Earlier, he served as the Dean at the Faculty of Communication and Business Studies and Acting Director of Trincomalee Campus, Eastern University, Sri Lanka. Raghuram is a Commonwealth Fellow and obtained his PhD from Gandhikaram Rural University, India, in the field of development communication and Masters in Journalism and Mass Communication. Further, he was the university rank holder and gold medalist at Royal College, affiliated to the University of Madras, India, for his outstanding academic performance in undergraduation, BSc in Visual Communication. Before entering into the academic life, he was a versatile journalist holding key positions in print and electronic media for 10 years. Was editor of Kishan Tamil Daily and Pinakathiyan Daily from Baticho, executive producer at Maharaja Television, chief editor of Namatu Isantu, and editor of Yarash Tinakkuran. Further, he was an information, education and communication specialist in Asian Bank-funded Northeast Coastal Community Development Project. In addition to the academic position, Professor Raghuram is currently working as a consultant and a resource person in many areas of his specialization and holding membership at various national and regional level committees in media and communication, with his participation in research and studies related to the national development. Professor, first of all, welcome to the Annual Research Symposium 2022. Professor, now the time is yours for a plenary speech.
Yes, good morning to you all. This is a privilege to me to invite for the annual research symposium of Sri Palee campus, University of Colombo. And here that we have our chief guest, Senior Professor H.D. Karnaratna, Vice Chancellor of University of Colombo, and the Rector of Sri Palee campus, Dr. Pratibha Mahanamave, and the keynote address given by Professor Zhu Lifang, Professor, Department of Publishing Science, School of Information Management, Wuhan University, Republic of China, and other dignitaries here. So here I wish to give a plenary speech on memorialize the impacts of war, a documentation of oral stories of Sri Lankan Tamils. So I directly go to the speech. This is a high time to think about that alternative communication. And of course, the way we can get the recording of the grassroots people. So that is very important one, to have that alternative to the mainstream media. So the oral literature is considered a treasure of wisdom and a way of holding history from the perspective of the grassroots people. Though the domination of the authorities from the domains of knowledge, social structure, myths, and richness determined history, the oral literature reserved the space for the history of a layman who is suppressed and oppressed. Oral history is a field of study and a method of gathering, preserving, and interpreting the voices and memories of people, communities, and participants in past events. Thus, it became as an awareness campaign and education in an alternative path for those who would search for truth throughout the history. From another perspective, in the history constructed from the oral stories of the people look at the events horizontally instead of vertically. The analysis is used to capture the history hierarchically or trickled down by the so-called elites and historians. The oral history tried to put forward the life, beliefs, objectives, thoughts, traditions, and even the politics and emotions of the people belonging to the land in their voices, and it should not be sidelined by considering the number of vibrations and quantity. In Sri Lanka, the long-standing war affects the life of hundreds of thousands of people, not only from the Tamil community all over the island. Thousands of them were killed and forcefully disappeared. Many were chased away from their habitats. They were displaced locally. A considerable number of displaced are still living in refugee camps, houses of relatives and friends. Most of these persons were deprived of their rights and still not permitted to return to their native places. Their lives were filled with tears and struggles. The memories of their own life are not permitted to reveal the truth and are largely interpreted and manipulated as a struggle of terrorism and violence in government documents. Even the Tamil people, who are one of the national ethnic communities of this island and holding their motherland traditionally in the north and east of the country, cornered and not admitted to remembering their close relatives and friends who were killed during the war. The government has built countless memories celebrating the war victory rather than post-war immunity. Further, the government is forcing upon the world an erasure of memory while asserting and maintaining its own narrative of victory. The existence of memory for the Tamil poses, in the view of the government, the possibility of the revival or regrouping of terrorism. Observations by the special rapporteur on the promotion of truth, justice, reparation, and guarantee of non-recurrence, Mr. Palee D. Grief, on the conclusion of his visit to Sri Lanka in 2017, explained the ground reality in his statement that memorialization can have a reparative effort provided that it is even handed, not used by anybody as part of zero-sum game in which the basis task is to reaffirm a single-sided narrative. Spaces are needed for communities to mourn and remember those they have lost, especially those sites across all regions where civilians died. In this context, the study revealed the importance and the efficiency of the transmission of oral narratives in the present scenario in Sri Lanka by observing the two notable efforts made by an organization named Noolakam, a virtual library, and Mr. Thurairaja Jayaraj, well known as Jera, a freelance journalist and social activist from north of Sri Lanka. In their efforts on the register the oral stories of the common people with different dimensions as case studies in order to encourage and memorialize the impacts of war through the oral documentation. The study explored the trends and determinations of using construction of the history of common people in a war-torn area by analyzing the context of the reflections, opportunities, and challenges in the collection and system of archiving the stories. The first, I will go through the first effort, which I taken as a case study, Avanagam, the platform of the collection of oral stories. Avanagam, a multimedia archive platform, a project launched by the Noolakam Foundation to record oral histories by disseminating oral histories as a research methodology and training researchers in the field of oral histories from the year 2017. So far, there are more than 34,000 documents relevant to the 93 aspects that have been collected and archived in digital format in a virtual space named Avanagam. A part of Noolakam, this is a part of Noolakam, a digital archive and digital library undertaken the critical work of documenting and preserving, and it provides free and open access to the knowledge base and cultural heritage of Sri Lankan Tamil-speaking communities. The oral history is the main component of the collection. It has recorded nearly 480 oral stories, such as life history, oral history, history of temples, history of people's movement, political parties, and social organization. They are about liberation movements, folk worships, different professions, stories regard to the arts, caste, indigenous medicinal practices, and nostalgic memories about villages, schools, friends, and so on. The main objective of recording oral histories of Avanagam was the documentation as claimed by Mr. Thillainathan Gobinath, a pioneer of the project. Since losing the aged people who know the life and history of the past, and the need arises to document the subaltern voices which are not reached by the mainstream media, are the basic reasons to commence this vigorous assignment, he shared further. Avanagam also tried to preserve the sources which can facilitate the constructions of the alternative history, which is largely buried by the forces that dominated the society for years and years. It is very interesting that the larger number of the oral histories recorded by Avanagam are from the Malayagam, the central hilly part of Sri Lanka, upcountry, where the Indian origin estate workers were settled mostly from Tamil Nadu 2 centuries before. The people of upcountry do not enjoy the opportunity like the people from north and east of the island, who have the custom and traditions to record their professional and personal lives in the form of printed publications. The efforts of Avanagam strongly believe that the archives of the oral histories of common grassroots people can lead to constructing an alternative history in future by providing evidence of the past from the people's perspective. It has realized that the value of the archive, which is predominantly in the hands of the government in local contexts, such as National Library and the Department of National Archive in the South, and the Sri Lankan Tamils, the community does not have serious concern on the documentation of its own history. While setting the criteria for the selection of the informants who are interested to share their stories, it's observed that the Avanagam mainly moved towards the sites of recording personal histories rather than professional experiences. The diversity and the different background are also considered in priority, such as laborers, teachers, and village priests, in order to minimize the monopoly of the voices from the same strata. The freedom to express the opinion and justification over holding ideologies and other relevant personal traits have been admitted as their own to ensure the engagement without any limitations during the recordings. It's requested to the informants without any limitations during the recordings. It's requested to informants always share their own experiences and minimize the expression of third-party information which used to be collected from others. But it's occasionally permitted when the need is understood to have a look at the rare incident and consideration over the importance of the time period. The choices of the recording medium as audio or audio visual also consulted with informants and acted according to their wishes. Anyhow, Avanaham maintains the arrangements to get the proper backup by more than a channel for recording as its accepted system. While the anonymous appearance and identifications were requested from the informants for various reasons, the Avanaham is keen on the credibility of the information and has not shown interest in the admission where there is a possibility of manipulation exists. It's further noted that while the informants who have the capacity to tell the stories interestingly as storytellers occupied comparatively larger duration, even some of time for more than 10 hours taken to share their insights. They have extended their sphere by telling branch of stories from the main stem and are encouraged by the data collectors who are ready to spend time and show their interest in listening. When having an observation on the recording of the experience on or about the war in Sri Lanka, Avanaham mostly compiled the oral stories from the common agenda and did not aim particularly to attend the stories in regard to the war and its consequences. But Avanaham has been able to find the stories of war are interwoven with personal profiles and other avenues of the storytelling. It's noteworthy that the number of people shared their personal experiences, particularly about the war of Indian Peacekeeping Forces, IPKF, in the northern east of the island nation, and the mass displacement that occurred in the Jaffna Peninsula in 1995. It is observed that the participants of the project not like to share their experience about final phase of the war held from 2007 to 2009. Even though some of the informants have shared painful memories of the ethnic riots which occurred in the year 1983 at the starting point of the armed struggle, they wished to bypass the period of the final phase of the war and shared only a short description of it. The researcher felt that there are strong reasons or intention should be for bypassing the period that can be the uncertainty of the protection of the personal life, fear of revealing the truths, and hard to recall and accept the reality of the loss of thousands. Some of them are very close relatives and friends. Further, there are chances for the assumptions among the informants that is not an appropriate time to talk about the events that happened in the very recent past, where the oral history is mostly mounted on long years back. The Avanaham, the platform of the documentation, expects the opportunities to convert the oral stories into text format, which is more feasible for searching and finding the exact location by using keywords. And Avanaham hopes that the platform will be the space for the extensive research who wants to inquire about the fields of folklore, anthropology, ethnography, culture, and so on about the Sri Lankan Tamils. Here that I wish to go to the next case study, which I took for my research, that is the oral stories of the people who lost their lands. The efforts on recording the oral stories of the people, specifically who are directly affected by the war and lost their family members and were forcefully displaced from their lands, have been registered by one single person, Mr. Thurairatnam Jayaraj, well known as Jera, a freelance journalist and social activist from north of Sri Lanka. Compare with Avanaham, Jayaraj, that is Jera's attempt, is different, and he would act not only for the documentation, but takes up the initiation to formalize a people's movement to fight for the rights. As one of the outcome of this, the stories of the Tamils who have been chased away from their motherland in Sri Lanka have been compiled and published as a book with the assistance of the Adayalam, a center of policy research in Jaffna. The outsized existence of the government armed forces in North and East, even after the war, and thus leading to forceful occupation of the lands belonging to the people, are the main field of the studies under the title of Nilamilanda Kadaigal, the stories of the lost lands, which released as a book publication in 2015. The stories are grounded on the common people who want to resettle in their own lands, again from where they were forcefully chased out several years ago. The lands are presently occupied by the armed forces for various reasons, including constructing military barrages, government assistance planned settlement, people from that sister community, in order to change the population composition in traditional Tamil areas, so on. The methodology used by Mr. Thurairasa Jayaraj, that information oral narrative recorder, was a narrative journalism as mentioned by the director Adayalam in his foreword, and it helped Jayaraj to get involved very closely to collect the sensitive stories from the affected people. In 2010, the year after the end of the final phase of the war, Mr. Thurairaja Jayaraj started to collect the stories of the people in order to publish in a Tamil daily from Jaffna, and he recognized that oral stories were the better platform to make the people talk about unspoken and unrevealed pains suffered from the long-standing war. The situation did not favorable for him after the war to work in the war-affected villages initially, and the people were not ready to share anything because of the fear of abductions and forceful disappearance even after the war. Further, the people were not come out from the psychological impacts as the direct witnesses of the war, which kills thousands in bombing and shelling over several days. The main threshold area for his research was the border villages in the Vanni region, such as Kokkulai, Karanatagani, and Mandingindi Malay, which are severely affected by the intrusions of the planned colonization for a long time and not sheltered by any authorities, including local politicians. Since a heavy surveillance, the people were having fear on the persons from outside, even the journalist. And Mr. Thurairaja Jayaraj used to wait to identify and introduce him with the association of familiar persons to approach the people with his nativity helped to do so. The people interviewed were not restricted to the issues at the meeting and were allowed to talk about what they wished to share. The required portions were documented only after scrutinizing and listening to the complete story made the data collector have a better understanding of the people and their background interviewed. The inducements and assistance to explore the memories and track down them to talk about the issues where they deviate from the stem were also applied in order to preserve the energy and concentration of the people. Depending on the sensitive levels of the topics shared, the additional tools used as meeting personally and with family members where the need arises. Most of the stories started with the perspective of individuals and later expanded to more people and groups. While meeting groups, Mr. Thurairaja Jayaraj felt that the stories gathered with different dimensions and even deeper than individual recording, particularly about the grave incident they faced during the wartime, including massacres and massive immediate displacements. The continuity is kept in line with the storytelling, while the group sharing is conducted if someone forgets to share anything important and missing parts. It's further noted that the people as witness felt safe when they gathered in groups along with their close associates and shared sensitive issues. While the oral stories were made into transcript, the credibility and the holistic view of the oral stories were always cross-checked with a comparative study on the secondary sources and sometimes even from the people from the neighboring villages. It's realized that the monotone or depending on the single or available sources is a challenge and danger where the scope of finding alternative history from the oral histories. When finding informants to share the information on a particular incident or event which occurred more than 20 or 30 years ago, there is a mathematical approach employed to find suitable storytellers by calculating the age at the time of the incident or event happened. It justified that the people from different age groups could have shared different views on the particular incident or event and were able to get more or less complete picture by merging the stories, sometimes different versions together. It is noteworthy that the recording of the nonverbal cues along with the verbal stories also should be considered paramount when the stories come out from a very personal and sensitive issues. While a person who is only alive from the family where others were brutally burned in a house at Tennamaravati, border village between districts in eastern Sri Lanka, Trincomalee and Manalaru, when he shared his oral history, his body language and expressions were held together, unimagined pain from him, Mr. Jairaj told. At the time of recording of the oral stories of the close relatives of the persons who were forcibly disappeared during and after the war, and the status and whereabouts are not known yet, also made similar remarks of the above. Anyhow, the challenges prevail in visual recording, in particular on the recording of the war experiences and impacts that they could help personally expose the witnesses to the world, which may lead to harm to their existence and survival. It's another obstacle noted that the people believe in sharing their sorrows that may provide remedies for their unresolved issues, such as the cases of forceful disappearances. Hence, it's strongly expected that the objective of the collection of oral stories should reveal clearly to the people before they invite to engage in sharing. Even though the hardships faced in the efforts of the documentation of the oral stories in the context of the memorializing the impacts of war, it's understood that this is the only available avenue to register the true history from the people's perspective and the way to construct the alternative history which expected to put forward to the world. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, my part is over now. So if there's any clarifications or further information required, I'm able to answer for them.
Thank you, dear Professor. Is there any questions? Yes, Ms. Sachin.
Thank you, Professor Raghu, for your informative presentation. I just asked these questions for the clarification that you mentioned in the case number 1, that I remember that Avanam Library digital platform, that oral, that means the war-affected people stories, is that available on any other language except from the Tamil language?
No, that I think they have the idea to translate them into even other language, but at presently they are keeping them in their nature, that it is what is the original form of the deliveries. They are keeping them. I think it's much better to. The another thing I wish to that place it here, that comment on that Avanaham. They are not only that registering that the memories of the war, but they are actually recording that oral histories related to even other aspects. Their personal matters, that sometime about the celebration, sometime about their nostalgia, memories and all. So that now they have recorded them in avanaham.org, that is a virtual platform. And the people who knows the Tamil language, they are able to access them. But in future, they told me that they are going to take steps to translate them into other language too.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Raghuram. It was a very interesting and excellent presentation. And of course, we could get to know so many information from you, of course, through this excellent keynote to speak. When you mention about the narratives or the stories of war victims or of course, the people who were vulnerable to this war situation, it's good that, of course, have the recordings. And at the same time, as question by, of course, made the clarification by Sachita, it is also, I think, needed at the moment to have the translations also, because otherwise we won't be able to read those things. So those who are not, of course, competent in the Tamil language won't be able to read those things. So I think better we have to have those translations also in the future.
Yes.
And apart from those things, of course, it's very good to record the narratives or the war stories or the victimizations of those people, recording the victimizations of in kind of a war. But at the same time, was there any empowerment programs? Of course, these were victims could have been under huge pressure for maybe around 10 to 20 years. So under this program, it was that happen only the recordings, getting the recordings of those people, or was there any kind of empowerment program for those war victims? Of course, so I think mentally as well as physically, so they were heavily damaged. And it is very rare that we could see major mechanisms to restore the minds of these people in a massive way. At least from the community level, was there any kind of such programs? And also the empower, especially because these people were highly victimized, and as you mentioned, they had the big trauma, as well as under the threat of maybe both military as well as paramilitary forces. And with that, they might have been under a huge threat, and with that mentality, maybe they are living at the moment and maybe not be able to even come up with any voice.
Yeah.
And was there any such programs too? And
yeah.
So how can we empower those people also to come up and to have a equitable life with like the other people who enjoy the other facilities in the society? Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is actually a very good observation from the professor. When they share the oral histories, even for the recording purposes, but they feel that this is a psychological outlet for them. So because they have mounted with the pains that what they suffered throughout the life. So when they get a chance to actually they expose that one to other people, they feel that it's a psychological outlet to get relief from the pains. So that is a one thing happened. That's a what you call natural phenomena of that the counseling mechanism happening when they are what you call that talking about that their stories, even for the recording purposes or some other purposes. That is the thing happening. But when you ask about the question about that proper mechanism to empower that war victims, there is a very less efforts only made to recover them. So even when you visit, when I visit to that war affected area, severely that affected area, I could see that there are so many families living as a single-headed families that or otherwise what you call that the woman-headed families. So that there are so many trauma mounted among them, but there is no proper mechanism to make them actually come out from these clutches. So even though that some of the NGOs, non-governmental organizations are working on it, I don't think those are the things are the far enough to make them come out these type of clutches. So as you prefer that one, that even though after 10 years of war, there are the parents are searching their dearest ones. So they forcefully disappeared even during the wartime, at the last part of the wartime, even after the wartime. So they don't know what happened to their dearest ones. If they died, okay, they will accept it. Okay, that matter is over. But when they feel that what happened to them, what happened to whether they are living or not, that is the big trauma to them. So there are the thousands of mothers are crying even today about that they are dearest sons and daughters. So where they are. So this is the things are going on. I think that the government should take a very serious concern about this one. Not only about that, what you call giving that compensation to them, but they have to really make some serious efforts to provide a better relief, empower them to come out from these type of pains and sorrows. So I think it's a timely need. Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So is there any other questions? Right. I think Professor Abhiram, thank you once again for a great speech, and I think it's the best platform or the best beginning we can afford to the proceedings of the symposium. Thank you, Professor Abhiram, once again for joining with us for the symposium.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. So now it's the time for the most important part of the symposium. For proceeding with the technical sessions, I will hand over the proceedings to Mr. Amalu Lokuman, lecturer, Department of Mass Media, Sri Palee campus. Amalu, the stage is yours.
Hi everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you a very good morning and warm welcome all of you to our annual research symposium on creative and innovative approaches in mass media and performing arts being held at Sri Palee campus of the University of Colombo today. In order to proceed with this academic forum, may I very respectfully invite Professor Tudor Veerasinghe to chair the panel. Professor Tudor Veerasinghe is the former rector of the Sri Palee campus and professor of the Department of Mass Media, where he has been sharing his expertise with academic community for many years. I'm also very humbly invite Professor Dharmakirti Sriranjan and Professor K.V. Dhanapala as panel members of the session. Professor Dharmakirti Sriranjan is a former head of the department and senior lecturer at the Department of Mass Media of the Sri Palee campus. Professor K.V. Dhanapala is a former head of the department and senior lecturer at the Department of Languages of the Sri Palee campus. We can now proceed with the presentations. This is over to you, sir.
Welcome and thanks for you attending our first technical session, symposium, Sri Palee campus. Main theme is our session, symposium, creative and innovative approaches in mass media and performing arts. This session, this technical session will be two speakers we have. First, I would like to invite DCV Fernando. His topics analyze of film sound as storytelling techniques in contemporary cinema, with a special reference to Troy's dream of a dream.
Okay, good morning, all of you. Good morning, dear panel and session convener, and all the others are here. So I will straight away start my presentation. I think my presentation is sharing right now. So my topic is analysis of film sound as a storytelling technique in contemporary cinema, with special reference to Darren Aronofsky's Requiem for a Dream. Analysis of film sound as a storytelling technique in contemporary cinema, with special reference to Darren Aronofsky's Requiem for a Dream. So I'm Fernando. So briefly, if I start my presentation, sound. I think in this little silence, you all heard different sounds. Maybe the rolling of the wheels of the camera, maybe my breathings, maybe the AC. So I believe sound has a power which can create images in the mind. So that is why we call sound is the theater of mind. Actually, this is from Michel Chion in his book Audio-Vision. So my research is based on film sound. Actually, the film sound design is one of the key important element in film language. So when we discuss about film language, we have 5 elements, which is narrative, cinematography, mise-en-scène, sound design, and editing. So all these 5 elements together create the visual language or film language. So film, audio and visual language or the film language. So my concentration is on actually with the sound. Sound in the film has 3 parts basically. Is technical background first. So we need to think about the capturing techniques of sound, and we need to think about the design or maybe the capturing technique of the part and editing technique and the screen or the producing or the transmitting technique of the sound. So that is why we have 5-point Dolby Atmos, like similar kind of a techniques. So next part is design and narrative background. So how the sound works as a narrative or a design part in the film, mainly with the storytelling, And finally, it has a very strong psychological background when we discuss about sound, because as I mentioned before, the theater of sound as a theater of mind, it is the most important thing that keeps the audience alive, or maybe they keep the audience engaged with the visual. So the use of film sound as a storytelling technique in contemporary cinema. So this is my main topic actually. So mostly sound works as, sometimes sound works as an emotion or to enhance the emotion, maybe to build the curiosity or the tension, sometimes as a sign or a symbol. When it comes to storytelling technique in sound as a contemporary cinema, actually sound has become more than unrealistic or maybe unnaturalistic approach when it comes to the sound design of the film, of films, especially very recent narrative with very recent narrative techniques. Some of the sound treatments in films we can call them as exaggerations or maybe repetitions, right? Exaggeration is, we know that it's a statement that represents something as better or worse than it's really what is. So my research is actually how the storytelling technique, how the sound works as a storytelling technique in contemporary cinema. So my research is actually based on the Requiem for a Dream movie, which is called Requiem for a Dream, directed by Darren Aronofsky. He himself also a sound designer, so which is why the sound design of the film is very interesting. The brief story of the Darren Aronofsky's film is actually a tragic demonstration of shattering fantasized utopias of drug addicts. So it's a story of 3 drug addicts in different levels and how they merged in the story and how it develops when the story develops, right? So I will focus on the research problem. My research problem states as how to analyze the use of sound as a storytelling technique in contemporary cinema in the movie Requiem for a Dream. So this is my research problem of the research. If I move to the research objectives, the film sound is actually, when it comes to film, we all think about the visual. Early cinema is actually started as visuals, but when it comes to the end of the silent era of cinema and when it comes to the beginning of the sound era, sound engagement is heavily depend on the success of the movie. But there are no much research or discussion based on the film sound. Even especially in Sri Lanka, in the academic and also in filmmaking field, both the sound design is actually not that much, the priority the producers or maybe the academics haven't given that much priority for the sound design. So this is why I select this topic. So one of the main objectives of the research is to make awareness about the film sound based study, understanding and analyzing the cinematic sound treatment, critically studying the film sound. So analyzing the sound design of the movie required for Dream. So my research methodology is based on content analysis in the qualitative research method. So the research is actually an explanatory research. The textual references are there. Mostly I use the textual references based on the theory of film sound and requirement for a Dream movie-based film analysis and reviews. So literature review, actually the film sound analysis of Michel Chion in his book Audio Vision, he explains the role of the sound in cinema. And his approach is more a philosophical and psychological approach when it comes to the sound. So in this study, he further develops the sound's psychological influence on the audience. So my target is using his analysis and analyzing the movie requirement for Dream, especially the sound exaggerations, sound repetitions in the movie. So there are many research based on the film sound and the movie, but actually use of sound as storytelling technique in contemporary cinema with special reference to this movie is the most important or the main part of my discussion. So I'll move to the discussion. So when it comes to sound, we have 5 elements in sound, especially dialogues, music, sound effects, ambience, the background sound, and Foley sound. So these are the 5 elements of sound. So all these 5 elements connects to create the sound picture of the film. So in sound, we have diegetic, non-diegetic, and acousmatic. So the sound perspective is another important part when it comes to the basic understanding of the sound. That means from which source or from where we hear the sound, or from which character, maybe from which end, or maybe from which object in the frame we hear the sound. So then next point is sound always deal with the mood, tone of the mood and the tone of the narrative. Right. I will develop my discussion like this. The sound design of the film also brings the uncertainty of their emotions and lives as a drug addict. So now I am focusing on the movie Requiem for a Dream. In this movie, the psychology or the emotional situation of the characters are represented through the sound. One of the important part of this movie sound is, like as I mentioned before, music is one part of the sound design. So theme music of this sequence, if you watch the movie in the internet, or maybe if you just heard the music track or the theme music, I think you will recognize this movie because it's one of the most famous sound theme music which is ever created. So the theme music actually brings the mindset, or maybe they brings the appearance of the film. Then next point is sound repetition. So what is sound repetition is, sometimes similar kind of sounds are repeatedly used in the film, especially in special montage or special sequences. So because they want to create that intense and the psychological issue of these drug addicts. So this is one point. So next, I am going to analyze these parts, so these things. So in montage scenes, actually, the parallel with the visual close-ups, sound close-ups are used. So what is sound close-up? Visual close-up is, we know that the close-up of an object or some person or an object. Sound close-up is, we are highlighting only to one sound of the frame. Let's imagine rolling a note. Nothing you can hear in the frame, only rolling the note. Maybe smoking, So we are highlighting one sound of the frame. So parallel with the visual close-up, we are in this movie we are using sound close-ups. So especially opening a pill and taking a small pill, and so these sound techniques are actually exaggerated. So they have exaggerated. Normally in our the day-to-day lives, we can't hear those sounds. So they have exaggerated that sound techniques. So then next point is the diegetic sound in the visuals and elaborating them. Diegetic means the sound which comes from the frame. So there are, when it comes to the film sound, there are diegetic, non-diegetic and acoustomatic. So diegetic means all the sounds comes through the image. So non-diegetic is the source of the sound is not in the frame, it's outside the frame. So diegetic sounds, they have used the diegetic sounds in more exaggerated way and also more in a creative way, especially as a sound pattern. So then actually sometimes the naturalistic sound use is overuses or they exaggerated in the sequences. Especially there is one interesting scene that refrigerate itself make a sound and it becomes a character in this movie. Refrigerator makes some sounds and it becomes a character in the movie. So that is actually that is unrealistic approach, but they have used it to create the psychology or the mindset of the characters. So before I move into the next and the final part of my discussion, I would like to let you hear and watch a small 40-second clip of the movie, which I think then you will understand what I already said.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I think what I have explained through words, you can understand through the visuals and the audio. So in visuals or the editing, montage theory came from the Sir Jason time, but later this kind of a sound close-ups are used in films as a technique of storytelling in the movies. Right. So finally, the psychoanalytic reading of the sound design. So we can read the movie using psychoanalytic approach, focusing on the sound only because of using of these sound techniques and other sound-based techniques. Right. So I will come to the final part of my presentation. Actually, conclusions and suggestions. The sound design of a movie is equally important as the visual of the movie. So my point is, like, especially in Sri Lanka, even in the film education, even in the film academics, we haven't focused on sound. That is my point, right? Especially something like Foley art. So since I'm working as a Foley artist outside school sometimes, so the Foley art is never introduced as a theory or as an academic practice. So my point is, we need to give that focus into the sound design. So and when we watch an international production or the Hollywood or a well-developed productions, not only the images that are quality with that high technological quality, but the sound is also. So analyzing the sound design of the movie should need both a theoretical approach and knowledge based on sound design techniques. So I think when we design the sound, or when we're discussing about sound design, we need that technical knowledge about how the sound is developing, how the sound is creating and distributing, but also we need that theoretical approach, which I very rightly mentioned from the Mr. Shion's point of view. Right, sound has an important subfield in media and cinema. So I think sound is one important area, especially we should focus in media and film or the cinema. So, so we need more involvement in our research works about sound. And finally, actually, I want to develop my research and I want to add some more movies with this. So I want, and I think I am suggesting actually to research about sound through audience perspective, how the audience feels sound in the movie, right? So this is my presentation, how the sound works as a storytelling technique in contemporary cinema with special reference to the Darren Aronofsky's movie, Requiem for Dream. So these are my references and thank you. Thank you very much.
Interesting topics. Very motivating. Maybe we are going to our next speaker. What end of the?
You can answer now.
Yeah, that's good. Yes.
For questions or comments, any other ideas?
Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. You have employed content analysis. Which type of tools did you employ for the content analysis?
Actually, I employed mostly on the, I focus actually more on the work of the sound or the sound techniques. So in the movie, how the sound techniques are used in the movie. So that is what the type of a technique I use actually in the movie for the content analysis. Rather than going for the narration or maybe the theme or the philosophy or the ideology of the movie, I wanted to discuss more on the technical part. So that is why I think I use that type of approach.
How did you incorporate the methodology, content analysis methodology with that tools?
Actually, what I did is actually, I read about sound design technique-based theories and theoretical approach-based books and also some references. And then when I'm watching the movie, then I apply these techniques and these things into the movie. That is how I did the content analysis part.
No, I mean that there are types of content analysis methods.
Yes.
So which type of content analysis method do you use?
Actually, I don't have a clear reply for that exactly. But this is the technique I used.
So you have to incorporate it with
the theory, yes.
And how did you analyze the data?
I analyzed the data actually. I read some articles based on sound design and the sound and especially the sound master classes. And then I apply. And then when I'm watching the movie, I watched a few times, and then I applied these sound basic theories and principles to the movie when I'm watching it, and as a breakdown, as a movie scene by scene, I analyze it. And especially I took this to the editing software, and then one by one I play, and then scene by scene I want to check the sound and the audio differently. So that is how I actually did it. Because I did some search on how to analyze the technique of the sound in the film, but I didn't found any technique that specifically, if we have in visuals, we have some sort of methods or we have some sort of approaches. But here I couldn't find something like that. So since that's why I used Mr. Shion's approach and also the basic sound-based practical knowledge which I have to analyze the movie.
But you can employ the same content analysis methods, something like that, coding and thematic.
Yes.
So we can apply the same theories, yeah.
Yeah, I think the thematic one, like, yes, we can develop this into the thematic part because my focus is more on the sound design, but I think like if we go to the, like, to be honest, like if we develop this thing, most of these movies, they have if we have this kind of a sound-based treatment, they have mostly deal with the psychology of or the psychological theme. Or psychological effect, like this one, and also there are some other movies like they have used, most of the time they have used the, if there is a psychological theme or psychological disorder or something based on the movie, most of the time they use this kind of a sound treatment to engage the audience in different ways. So it's, I think it's an interesting suggestion, sir.
My last question.
Okay.
Could you say something about recent sources and discussion on this research?
In Sri Lanka, actually, we have only 2 or 3 books which is written in Sri Lanka. Especially, one is from Shabdika Cinema, written by Tharupati Singh, sir. And then there is another book which is sound, it's about the sound techniques, written by Ravindra Lal Pereira, I think. And those are actually two recent Sri Lankan resources we have right now. And apart from that, when it comes to the, actually most of the other part of the information I took actually from the research papers, they in the academia and also in the research kit, we can find some research papers which is based on sound technique, but it's very less. Even in academia and research kit, like if we have 90% of for the visual or the framing or composition, we have only 10% for the sound, right? So basically these two, and there are some recent books, I couldn't remember the name, but film techniques and film narrative based theory books. Actually, these books, they have mentioned some chapters in sound, but not a deep analysis of the sound. And when it comes to the web, we have film.filmsound.org. So this is the only 100% sound-based website we have for the film sound. So when it comes to visual and film themes and other things, we have a lot of websites or a lot of e-sources. But filmsound.org is the only place we have right now. And there is another book written by Walter March. Walter March is the one who introduced the sound design to the cinema as this kind of a storytelling technique, this kind of approach actually. Especially, he's the one who did the editing and sound for Apocalypse Now movie. So he has written a book based on his ideas. Or maybe his approach is in that book. So these are the recent works I could find on this topic.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, is this your master thesis or MPhil thesis?
No, actually, this is not my MPhil thesis. This is, but I'd like to develop this into a book or publication.
If you are developing this thesis into your MPhil or your master's, I think I would like to give you some suggestions. You said like that you are doing only a qualitative study, but at the same time you can do both, because quantitative and qualitative, in the sense that now look at this. Now you said that there are 5 elements of film sound design. Now you could actually see how many sounds are there with regard to these things, right?
Right.
And then you can analyze it that now in your specifically this film, you analyzed only, you are just saying that, this is psychological effect.
Yes.
But if it is a psychological effect, then you have to explain, analyze it, what kind of a psychological effect is there. So you can actually just have a kind of a list, and one by one, you can, see, this is the sound, this is related to music, or this is related to background sound, or this is related to what is it, you say dialogue, something like that, and later on how this sound is included into this, film to have a kind of an effect, as you said, psychological or emotional effect, but you can see this is only psychological effect, but you have to explain what kind of psychological effect is there. So then you can expand it, Now, for example, if you say like, the what is the film on the ship which sank. But
Titanic.
Yeah, Titanic. Now there, like the sound effect is wonderful, and they have got the, awards.
Yeah, the Academy Award for sound design.
So each one you can see that, like, what kind of effect is there. For example, the music sound is given all the time on the song. The song of the theme is always played there in order to prepare the audience to have a kind of a tragedy, right? Like, so like that you have to, now when you show us the small clip, that was marvelous. It was like, there were about 25 sounds there, right?
Yes.
So only in that clip. So for me, I think that sound effect is, there are too much sound effect, because the sound is given to explain all the, thematical elements in the film. So I think this is a very good film just to study the, sound. So I think you can do both, right? Both, as Professor Dr. Pradeep said, you can say, do the content analysis. The content analysis is like what you said is right, because you have one by one, you have to analyze it, right? I mean, each and every sound you have to analyze, right?
Yes.
Analyze, and it, related to the specific elements of the sounds and theme of the sound, so that you will get a wonderful, I mean, a bigger, consideration if you want to. Right, thank you.
Thank you.
And also, where you said like there are a very few, research available on sound. No, there are a lot. You just go to the Scholar Google and find, because not here in Sri Lanka, I don't think you can find it, but there are a lot of research done, in Western countries. So you could find it, if you go to specifically, film, the research journals in the fields, yeah.
Research, yeah, there are a lot of research available. Yes, yeah. It's
Only the books. All the research with related to your theme, you can add. Not only the books or written things, even research. You have to mention all those things.
Yeah, just give you a kind of.
I think he did
that's really a very important thing.
And it's a wonderful presentation.
I agree on the question at all. So what I understood from his discussion was that he has read a lot, of course. At the same time, he has done a wonderful job. My, of course, request from you is that you were telling that we don't use much of sound techniques in the Sri Lankan cinema. That's for sure. When we of course watch James Bond or even Ashoka, we could feel much on the sound effect, right?
Yes.
But as you mentioned very correctly, so when we watch a Sri Lankan movie, so it is not much, of course. So we don't arouse with emotions when we watch Sri Lankan movies. When it comes to, of course, very like steamy and of course emotional scenes. So what do you think of Sri Lankan films? Like, why? So as you people like know the techniques and return the techniques, but not at the end of the day apply it to our cinema.
So actually the case is, if I like with the history, because I'm very young, so I know the little history, but in Sri Lankan sound designing, mostly the main filmmakers, we went to India. We did the editing part in Sri Lanka, but the sound design part, we went to India. Even now, Prasanna Vitanage and I don't know about the Ashoka Honeymoon, but Prasanna Vitanagi is also going India to sound design. So the filmmakers who have that approach, they can go to the international sound design studios and they can do the creative. Because of that, the other filmmakers, they don't have a exact sound only studio in Sri Lanka. We don't have a sound only for the sound designing studio. It's example like in India and all the other film industries, they have Foley studios, which is only specified for Foley designing. But we don't have that. Like we have the normal music studios we using the Foley. Yes, so that is one point. Like the previous, I'm not blaming them, but what they did, they went to the outside and they did that for their films. But instead of creating these techniques, and I'm not saying about the budget mostly about that background and the studio environment is and also knowledge actually is not here. That is the main case. Knowledge is not here because only Foley artists, like if I'm speaking only about Foley artists, I think it's the less priority is given to the Foley. Only Foley artists we have is Podi Mahathya. Podi Mahathya, he has done 1,000 or maybe more than 1,000 films, and the tragedy is he doesn't have he doesn't have a student or maybe someone who could do that after he died. He don't have someone. So that is the issue. That means like even my film education, we are giving less priority. I'm not only saying about the university. I mean, there are a lot of film degrees and film diplomas around Sri Lanka. That is the main first issue, that understanding and that knowledge. Because the equipment wise, we don't have that much issue because we have a good music industry. Music video industry, we have very good. I mean, when you compare to the India, we have we don't have that much resources, but the technical part we have that. The mixing and mastering things we can do, but that priority is not given because like our old tradition, the people go abroad, those who can go abroad, others they do something in the editing room and they do. So that is why if you closely hear some Sri Lankan movies, we can hear the chumpang drivers sounds also. That much priority is not given to that. That is what I think. Now there are some young generation of sound designers, like which is someone like in my age. So they are trying to create it because of the online resources. You know, if you go to the YouTube, we have all the technical knowledge we can gain.
I just clarifications for that. Again, that the Sri Lankan directors or the sound designers have a lot of myth regarding the technology, because all the directors and the sound designers are based on the technology. For example, a lot of film directors are wanted the 4K cameras to shoot, yes. But the Sri Lankan broadcasting system, we cannot see the 4K. We only do the SD, right? Those things are the similar to the sound designing. A lot of people are thinking about the high tech sound techniques, but the delivery system, final delivery system is not in the capable to do that kind of delivery methods. So that is the scenario of the Sri Lankan artistic context. But I am not suggest to you that the sound is not the important part of the film. That I am totally agree with you. But the thing is, the Sri Lankan film directors are the even the amateurs of the films, they are always try to do the depend on the technology, not the artistic value.
This means like the sound design is like actually that design, it has a design element rather than a technical element. It has a design element. So we only, the most of the directors, we only follow that that thing, only the technical parts, not on the designing part.
Very much for presenting these kinds of facts, film, sound, and storytelling are the most basic concepts. are in the theories and are in your presentations. You use actually very big concepts like realistic sound, naturalistic sounds and their approaches, and close-up and symbols. My question is this: what are the relationship between sound perception, mind, and consciousness? This may be actually psychological questions, right? Very briefly, I expect your view.
I mean, in the movie or as like in general?
Yeah, movie and
General.
Yeah.
Actually, the thing is, normally in films, like sound, we call it like sound is the one where the actor brings the scene or the emotion to the scene, but the sound is the one who cheat on the audience. That means like, let's take a simple example. Imagine the close-up is, you are in the close-up of my close-up, and suddenly we hear a gunshot, and audience want to go to that gunshot. Right? So then we need to put the gunshot close-up next to the visual. So that is the connection when it comes to, the filmmaking basic. Audience and the character. And especially this, that is why in sound, in editing, we are using a cut called J cut. That means sound comes before the visual. Before the visual. So through the sound, it's like a bridge. The sound bridge. That is one thing. Actually, that next thing is that it's actually related to the Michelle analyze that the sound is the theater of mind. So sound is the theater of mind. So I believe that mind, normally when we hear a sound, we create that visual in the mind. So that is the connection actually. And yes, I think that's what you ask.
Thank you very much.
Questions? I have maybe first questions and other also related. Maybe you can use better than
Sorry, multimodal technique, right? Okay.
Multimodal
Approach. Yes, I think so. Like once Miss this explained that this how the sound layers or how many times. Like normally when we in the there are some sort of, especially in the sound, not in the music industry, they use like how many seconds or how many minutes. Quantitative method they are using, that how many, like if we take a 3-minute jazz song, how many seconds or how many how long the duration they are using this saxophone, or maybe that type of research technique is using it. I heard from I actually read it from the based on the music, not only for the not for the film side actually. So yes, I think that multimode of methodology, yeah, I can use to this presentation.
And also in that clip, what I saw was, before the interaction, what sometimes kind of an imagination which comes into the audience, there is the next one.
Yes.
So you have to critically analyze that one also, whether that effect is, that sound effect is, actually impact on the audience. Because if it goes, the quick repeat, what happens is like, and why it is there, right? Normally when there is a gun sound, and also we see like as the audience are now, there is something happening like a murder or something, like we imagine that kind of a situation, right? But in this movie, what I see was one after the other, before we imagine what is happening, why it is there? You know, is it for psychological fix? Or is it the mind of the, you know, the how the name, yeah? In the character, because the character is right?
Yes, that's like. And especially like.
And also, the psychology of the drug addicts also there.
Yes.
So it's very difficult to see that.
Right, yes.
You have to learn how the drug addicts' minds works. This is not so simple to do.
Yes, most of the reviewers actually, they said like after watching this movie, they felt, the reviewers, not the, I mean, not the critics, the reviewers, they said that after watching the movie, they got the real feeling of the drug addict. Like that is what actually the director wants to plan. So that is actually is there.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Dear scholars, so this is the end of the session 1, and we are indeed very much grateful to our panel members. Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. And I also take this opportunity to thank our presenter for this excellent presentation and academic contribution. So now I would like to invite all of you to join our technical session 2, so we can move to technical session 2. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you a very good afternoon and warmly welcome all of you to our annual research symposium on creative and innovative approaches in mass media and performing arts, being held at Sri Palee campus of the University of Colombo today. So in order to proceed with this academic forum, may I very respectfully invite Professor Ranjan Hettiarachchi to chair the panel. Professor Ranjan Hettiarachchi is the former rector of the Sri Palee campus and professor of the Department of Mass Media, where he has been sharing his expertise with the academic community for many years. And I also very humbly invite Dr. Sugat Mahinda Senarath and Dr. Pradeep N. Veerasinghe as panel members of the session. Dr. Sugat Mahinda Senarath is the head of the department and senior lecturer at the Department of Mass Media of the Sri Palee campus. Dr. Pradeep N. Veerasinghe is the former head of the department and senior lecturer at the Department of the Mass Media of Sri Palee campus. So now we can proceed with the presentation. This is over to you, sir.
Mr. And there are 4 presentations. And my other 2 panel members, Dr. Sugat M. Senarath, the head of the department, and senior lecturer of the department, Dr. Pradeep Veerasinghe. And all the presenters got 15 minutes for their presentation, and they can present their presentations during that time. And we will start with the first presentation for today in the second panel, that is KP Gamage, who is going to present on digital reading behavior in Sri Lankan secondary education, case on digital textbook reading. It is over to you, KP Gamage.
Thank you, sir. I think, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Good evening to you all. First of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity for sharing my research findings in Sri Palee campus Annual Research Symposium 2022. So my research topic is digital reading behavior in Sri Lankan secondary education, cases on digital textbooks. So I am Kumesh Prabhashini, lecturer in Department of Mass Media. Okay, so I divided my presentation to the 5 parts: introduction, literature review, methodology, results and discussion, and finally came to the conclusion and recommendations. So let's move to the introduction. When print became more automated, the reading habits changed from intensive to extensive read. Browsing or scanning is turning into a common reading pattern in today's information-intensive environment, which was brought about by the invention of computer and the internet. According to Magnus Research 2013, shallow reading behaviors like scanning and skimming are prevalent in digital reading, which causes us to read less intently and shallowly. So, we are going to look in what is the digital reading. Simply, we can define that digital reading is the process of extracting meaning from a text that is in the digital format. So, Busselt 2008 stated on his research that digital reading usually involves the reading of multimodal digital text, that is the combination of embedded images, videos, and other media elements in addition to language in a text. So, digital reading significantly identified that it is the way of paper reading convert to the screen reading. Therefore, paper-based text convert to the hypertext and it given to the benefits such as formulating keywords, accessing the relationship between hyperlinks, choosing high-quality text from the online text, and also incorporating hypertext within open textual boundaries. So, the easiest way to define the idea of digital textbooks or e-textbooks is an educational or institutional book in digital form. The Britannica Encyclopedia defined that digital book in a full electronic book, a digital file containing a body of text and images suitable for distributing electronically and displaying on screen in a manner similar to a print book. So, what is the secondary education? Secondary education provides learning and educational activities building in primary education and preparing for both first labor market entry as well as post-secondary non-territory and tertiary education. Broadly speaking, secondary education aims at learning at an intermediate level of complexity. So let's move to the literature review. So several research communities have started to explore the digital reading behavior in secondary education. And I mentioned few of scholars' research findings here. Abdin and al. Explore on 2011 that a survey of online reading habits and rural secondary school students in Malaysia on their research finding revealed that online reading is a highly potent strategy in enhancing reading habits among these students. Concerning gender and hours spent on online reading, males appear to read more hours than the females. Also, Loth and Son 2019 drawing on survey data from 6,005 students and focus group data with 96 students across 6 secondary schools to examine adolescents' print digital reading habits in Singapore. Finally, they revealed that adolescents prefer print but move towards more online reading as they get older. Also, adolescent online reading habits are reflective of their print preference and behavior with physical books, as well as Proft and al. 2013 investigated the role of extracurricular reading behavior in the development of reading literacy. The research confirmed the importance of traditional book reading for the development of reading comprehensive and vocabulary. According to all these above research findings, I aim to investigate the effects of digital reading behavior on secondary education in Sri Lanka. So, my research problem is which digital reading behaviors affect Sri Lankan secondary school students when they use in digital textbooks. So my hypothesis is high potential digital reading behavior shows in Sri Lankan secondary school students when they use in digital textbook. So let's move to the research methodology. This study was based on the survey approach, and 325 senior secondary students in the Western province in Sri Lanka were given access to an online questionnaire. The Google Doc was used to produce the questionnaire, which was then shared via a WhatsApp. So 323 respondents, the raw data was accurate. SPSS software was used for the analysis of the data and finally came to the conclusion and the recommendation. So let's move to the results and discussions. According to the demographic factors, female students in the secondary education in the Western Province are 62.5% and male student is 37.5 as a percentage. According to the report of School Census 2020, in government schools, male students are 49% for and female students are 50.6% in the Western Province. Therefore, these data shows that the girls in the near secondary education in Sri Lanka are more likely to pursue higher education than boys in the gender analysis. 130 students in the age group of 80 years old engage with the digital textbooks. Those students are grade 13 and as a percentage, it is 40.2%. The second largest group is the 50-year-oldest represent the grade 10 students. It is 18 as a percentage. As a result, there appears to be some empirical focus on grade 10 and grade 13 students' use of digital textbooks. So, according to the data, according to the district, highest numbers of students responding to the use of digital books were from the Kaluthara district. Secondarily, 110 students in the Colombo district and also 73 students in the Gampaha district. The students in the Kaluthara district are intensively using digital textbooks according to these data. The majority of students who utilize digital textbooks living in semi-urban areas, there are 191 students total. Secondly, the majority of pupils reside in rural areas, that's a total of 58 students. Urban areas have the smallest numbers of students. As a result, rural and semi-urban areas with high rural characteristics account for 82% of the entire student population. When it comes to the relevant technology, related knowledge, human resources, infrastructures, and especially high-speed internet facilities, the geographical factors in which students dwell are the fundamental relevances for the digital textbooks. So when we are look into the student usage of digital textbook, 129 students out of whole sample utilize digital textbooks. It is 39.9% in percentage. In addition, 132 students do not use digital textbook. It is 40.9%. Another 62 students to some extent were used digital textbooks. According to this data, as a result, 191 of entire sample represent 59.1% expressed a positive attitude towards the use of digital textbooks. According to preferred reading version of the recommended textbooks data, majority of students prefer to read only printed textbooks. It is 58.2. Another 150 students said they would like to read both printed and digital textbooks. Only about 20 students have opted to use digital textbooks. So, according to the, it is clear that the secondary school children in Sri Lanka have preference for using only digital textbooks at a primary level, and they are more willing to use printed textbooks further. So, yeah. So when we are checking the data, the devices, how they access to the digital textbook. So the data shows that 196 students out of total sample use smartphones to access to the digital textbooks. It is 60.7%. And secondly, 84 students used personal computers or laptops to access to the digital textbook. So due to the COVID-19 situation in Sri Lanka in 2021, the schools were temporarily closed on several times, and the online education was provided by online. So it was during this provided that the use of smartphones became more prevalent in education than ever even before. According to the digital 2021 report, the number of internet users in Sri Lanka as of January 2021 was 10.9 million. According to the reasons why they like to use digital textbooks, the majority of the students in the sample cited easy access as a reason for using digital textbooks. Also, portability, searchability, and the easy to read and moreover reasons they have impact. So, reasons, when we are checking reasons for not use digital textbooks. So according to checked, what are the reasons? So majority of the students preferred that they moreover like to use printed textbooks. Only 62 students said that difficult to screen reading effect to that. Also, lack of sufficient internet connection, lack of technology knowledge, and also lack of devices for access are the other reasons. When analysis of the data, that opinion for digital textbook use it O-level and A-level syllabus in future, majority students are preferred digital textbooks will replace the reprinted textbooks in future. Also, 80 students are preferred digital textbooks will use more in education. So finally, 128 students are strongly agreed to the advent of digital textbooks for future education in Sri Lanka. Only 34 students out of sample strongly disagreed to that. So the research showed that in future have good potential for the digital reading behavior in future. So when we came to the conclusion and recommendation, accordingly, the hypothesis that high potential digital reading behavior shows in Sri Lankan secondary education students when they using digital textbooks was contradicted. Due to the technological limitation, a preference for reading only printed books, internet weaknesses, and an inability to read screens, digital textbooks are not widely used. This sample shows that students' perceptions are influenced by their reading behavior when reading on a digital devices. Speed, internet facility, awareness program on digital textbooks, and the increased infrastructure facility for digital reading can suggested and recommendation. So there are the references that I used, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Prabhashini. It was an excellent presentation, but there may be queries, questions from the audience, so it's the floor is open for the questions.
Okay, I'll start.
Okay, sir.
Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation, Ms. And it is completely new for me, and there are new findings. But I have doubt about your methodology. What is criteria of your sample? And could you please just sample?
Sorry?
Could you please justify your sample? You have selected Western Province,
okay,
and you have selected 323 respondents.
Okay, okay, sir. Actually, this is not a selective sample. It is it's shared via the online, and also why I am choosing only for the Western Province. Because when we are checking the geographical diversity in Sri Lanka, normally rural, semi-urban, and urban diversity can shows in the Western Province, because the Kalutara district, Gampaha, and also Colombo district represent in the Western Province. So that's why I'm chosen only the Western Province as my sample. And also so I shared the question area via the online. So 350 I distribute as the question area, and the raw data came as the 323.
Why 323?
Because some of the students, they not they are not answered all the questions. So I try to filtering who are given all the questions, answering all the questions. So that's why I'm choose that one.
No, just Kumish, I want to know that what are the criteria of selection of respondents?
Because of you have mentioned 235 senior secondary students, but you have not mentioned about the sampling method first. Then you have not mentioned that why you have selected 200 or 325, because you can select 500, 600, but we have to justify why we have selected sample.
Okay. Okay, sir. Because actually I distribute to the secondary education school students, no. So some of the students, example, I try to contact the some students WhatsApp group in the schools levels, and also contact the teachers to collect the samples. So some of the students they not answer the question because maybe they are not very impressive to the given the answers to the question area, like attend to this kind of service, maybe, I don't know, but that's why only I have received that quantity as a resource. That's why, sir.
Kumesh, I think they are asking about your sample selection criteria method. Is it purposive sampling method or what did you use?
Snowball or something.
I think random purposive sampling method. What selection?
Random purposive sampling, ma'am.
Why random sampling, Kumish?
Because sir, I try to share it online, and also I try to contact the students who are in all the living areas. So that's why.
So could you please tell us something about limitation of your methodology?
Sorry?
What is the limitation of your methodology?
Meditation.
I think she has used survey method.
Yeah, I mentioned that I use survey method.
Quantitative and qualitative methods. No?
What are the limitations of your methodology?
Hello. I only selected the grade 10 and 11 students, also grade 12 and 13 students, because secondary education in Sri Lanka, we can divide two parts, junior secondary education and senior secondary education students. So I only chose senior secondary education. It also have a two part, O-level grades and A-level grades. So I only focusing on the senior secondary education students, O-level and A-level grades. That is the limitation.
I have another question. You have selected Western province.
Yeah.
How to generalize this to other provinces? Because of the comparison with other provinces, digital facilities are higher than other provinces in Western province.
Actually, sir, only I focus in for this survey. I only focus into the Western province, because also I am also thought before there's a huge facilities also spread in the Western province. But you know, in the Western province also have the Kalutara district, also Gampaha district. They don't have the sufficient infrastructures, especially the internet facilities. Also, they don't have sufficient. So also, no, when I'm checking from the school levels, that people also don't have the sufficient infrastructure facilities on their schools also. So when I am developing this research, I can also check from the other provinces how they are developed, and how is this survey going on the other provinces.
Okay, Kumesh, thank you very much. And there were some very interesting questions too, and important questions too, of course. So it is, of course, for the development of your further studies, Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation, Kumesh. And So we'll go for the next presentation that is to be delivered by Dr. Jayantavan Sinha, and he is going to speak on a doll's house, an analysis from Sri Lankan perspective.
Very good afternoon, panel chair and the panel chairs and the participants. Welcome to my presentation. So as you see there, today I'm going to look at the drama, A Doll's House by Ibsen from a Sri Lankan perspective. So this is my abstract. So in this abstract, I argue that in A Doll's House by Ibsen, the playwright shows how a woman, despite being domestically confined, can emerge as a heroic individual to challenge inimical societal norms instead of being something that she doesn't care for. So by challenging these stereotypes and winning her freedom for self-development, the protagonist becomes in her own right and the sight of others. The aim of my research, rather the aims and objectives of my research are to examine the construction of feminine identity in the West, and also to compare the same with the Sri Lankan feminine identity. In order to proceed with my presentation, I am basically focusing on three theoretical interventions. One is Simone de Beauvoir. I think all of you may have heard of her. She's famous for writing her seminal book that is The Second Sex, in which she says, one is not born, but rather becomes a woman. So the person is born as a human being, but once she's born, once the human being is born, the person is labeled as a woman. And this concept is very important because in this particular seminal book, what she says is that the woman becomes the other. She is the other of the man. But the man is always the self, and also he is the subject. But woman becomes his object and also the other. She further says that man is always essential, he is absolute, and he is transcendented, but the woman is inessential, incomplete, and mutilated. So this is what I have taken from the seminal book, The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir, in order to analyze the drama. I'm also focusing on Guy Rubin's the famous book, rather the article, that is Trafficking Women, where Guy Rubin is arguing that woman becomes a property of the man, but it is not always true. Further, I have also selected Carol Gilligan's the famous section of the book in a different voice, where she is talking about moral development of women in 3 stages. I have selected the last stage, which is known as post-conventional morality. So when I am analyzing the text, I will show you how I am incorporating all these theories. So my methodology consists of qualitative research analysis. Actually, I'm interested in interpretivism, where I am interpreting the collected data along with theory. I'm selecting the content. So I'm focusing on the thesis research is based on content analysis, where I'm analyzing the content of the drama. So for this, I'm using the thematic approach. So when it comes to the drama, I focus on 3 themes. The first one is sacrificial role of women. The second is parental obligations. The third is unreliability of appearance, especially women. So in this drama, I have selected only the protagonist, that is Nora Helmer, in order to compare women's position, I mean Western women's position with Sri Lankan women's position. So this Nora is the protagonist of this play, and she is the wife of Thorvald Helmer. So when we start reading the drama, we initially find that she is more like a playful and naive child, but later we realize that she lacks knowledge of the world outside of home. But towards the end of the drama, we note that she comes to see her position in marriage with increasing clarity, and she finds strength to free herself from the oppressive situation in order to achieve her liberation, or what is called autonomy. Now let us look at the analysis part. So in this slide, you see 3 sentences. 3 phrases, actually these are not sentences, 3 phrases. First 2 are similar, whereas the last 3 are different. Now you may be wondering as to why I have prioritized these 3 phrases. So this is what her husband uses when he's addressing his wife. He says, "My little squirrel, go and bring me a cup of tea." But if you apply theory here, each word can be taken to describe the theory. Now take for the first word, that is my, the possessive adjective. So it shows you that the woman does not have an independent existence in society. She is his property. That is why he says, my. When he says, you are my wife, it means she is not an independent entity there. So woman becomes the property, woman becomes a property of the man. That is why he says mine. Then the other important word that you find there is little. So the word little, or rather is an adjective. This adjective is also very important because it shows you how little the woman is, not in size, but in knowledge. So that is why people say, or people in the patriarchal society say, a woman's brain cannot perceive anything further than the handle of the spoon. So that is what is captured there. So in order to put her down, he uses the adjective little to show that she is below him. Then you also find the first one and the second one, the third one, animals. Okay, so the man does not want to consider the woman to be his equal partner. He does not want to take his partner or wife as the equal partner. That is why he says, you are my little squirrel, you are my little songbird, you are my little featherbed. So all animals. So in patriarchal society, men believe that women have to play the role of what is called producing children. So it's animalistic function. So in order to criticize this function, what Ibsen does is that he uses names of animals when he makes his male address his wife. So when we look at the dialogues, so I'm basically focusing on Nora and her husband. So what Nora says is that we have been married now 8 years. Does it not occur to you that this is the first time we two, you and I, the husband and wife, have had a serious conversation? So this is the tragedy that we find in married couples. The husband is busy and the wife is busy, or if not both are busy, they do not get the chance to sit together for some time and discuss serious issues at home. So this is where we find isolation. And also Nora says, you don't understand me, and I have never understand you either before tonight. It means before today, neither you nor I have understood each other. So they are living as what is called strangers or aliens, even though they share the same roof and the same bed. And Nora further says, in all these 8 years, longer than that, from the very beginning to our acquaintance, we have never exchanged word on any serious subject. So neither the husband nor the wife is seriously engaged in anything serious at home. So this may be one of the reasons as to why in most of the families, either husband or wife wants to find somebody outside home, maybe to discuss that cannot be discussed with either husband or wife. So which can be seen in many families, even in Sri Lanka. The Nora further says, that is just it. You have never understood me. I have been greatly wronged toward first by Papa and then by you. So this is what Simone de Beauvoir says in her book. What she says is that the wife, or rather the woman, comes under or becomes the object of the father first. Once married, the husband, she is under the husband, and once husband is dead, she becomes the second of the elder son of the family. So what Nora says is that you have never loved, you have only thought it pleasant to be in love with me. So what it indirectly says is that the man or the male counterpart is not interested in looking into the needs of the wife. I see, if you open your eyes to society and the newspapers and the television, you may always see something similar to this. Then she further goes in saying that it is perfectly true toward when I was at home with Papa, he told me his opinions about everything, and so I had the same opinions. And that part is the most important part. And if I differed from him, I concealed the fact, because this is the most important part. We would not have, he would not highlight it. Now, just because the man does not like something coming from the woman, she has to conceal it. She has no right to reveal the truth there. I mean, when she is under the father, and when she is under the husband, and also when she is under the elder son once the husband is dead.
Then it says, she further says, I mean that I was simply transferred from Papa's hands into yours. So this is what Guy Rubin says in Trafficking Women, because woman becomes a conduit between two men to form relationships. So she becomes a commodity. That is why people call women badua sometimes. So this badua means, badua comes from the English word commodity. Commodity means badu, and that is why, because woman is transacted between, exchange between two men, people are used to saying or calling woman the badua. Okay, so it comes from this particular theory by Gail Rubin. Okay. Then you arrange everything. So you see, you arrange everything according to your own taste. So the woman has to be subjected to whims and fancies of the man. She does not have independence, existence even at home, according to this particular drama. If I further go into the dialogues or the conversations or the extract from the drama, you will see here that I have never been happy. So the women are not happy at home, even though they pretend to be happy. So this may be true of my family, it may be true of your family, and it may be true of many families in our country as well. I thought I was, but it has never really been so. So you are pretending to be happy, whereas you are not happy at all. You see the pathetic situation of women in the married families. But our home has been nothing but a playroom. So she is only playing the role of the woman. She is performing her duty towards the husband and towards the children and towards the family, nothing else. Okay, she does not have what is called the identity as a separate entity in that society. So it's a doll's house. Okay, so I thought it great fun when I played with them. That is what our marriage has been. So it's a kind of playing a role of a doll in marriage if they want to survive in that society. But you see, she further says, you are not the man. Now, having said all these things, now, what Nora does is that she is trying to understand society. She's trying to understand the family. She's trying to understand the husband. She's trying to understand herself. So she takes a very, very bold decision to leave home, leave her husband, leave her children, and everything. So this is where I am applying Carol Gilligan's post-conventional morality. So according to Carol Gilligan, when it comes to moral development of women, this is the most difficult decision a woman can ever take. She takes this decision having waited hours and days and months and years. But once taken, she never regrets over the decision taken by her. So if you just look at the fiction, The Road from Elephant Pass by Rinaldo Silva, there also you see as I remember, Kamala also takes a decision of this nature. So once the decision is taken, they are never worried about the decision taken, so they stick to that one. So in this particular case, Nora decides to leave her husband, children, and everything in order to find who she is. So I must try. So she says, told, you are not the man to educate me into being a proper wife for you. So she's beginning to understand, she's beginning to change, she's beginning to develop her own personality or character. So she says, I must try to educate myself. So the woman should find her own freedom. Woman herself should find her own freedom because until 20th century, I mean, women had been portrayed in fictions from male's point of view by male. So now here she says, okay, I must try to educate myself. You are not the man to help me in that. Okay. I must do that for myself, and that is why I am going to leave you. So Nora, I must stand quite alone if I am to understand myself and everything about me. It is for that reason that I cannot remain with you any longer. So she needs to find her own salvation, own emancipation, own personality. But you see what Helma, her husband, says is that to desert your home, your husband and your children, and you don't consider what people will say. So women have to be very worried about what other people say. And it is shocking. This is how you would neglect your most sacred duties. So according to the patriarchal society, the most sacred duty of a woman is to serve the husband and look after children and protect the family. So do I need to tell you that? Are they not your duties to your husband and your children? So she is there for the children and the husband, not for herself. No, I cannot consider that at all. I only know that this is necessary for me. I have other duties just as sacred. Okay, so her sacred duty is not only to serve her husband and children, but she says that you have not. What duties could those be? Nora says duties to myself. So she has her duties to herself. She has to protect herself. She has to improve her lot as well. So Ilma, before all else, you are a wife and a mother. So these are the two words which are used to deceive women. So we say you are a mother, or you are the second Buddha of family home. So you have to be there, and you are a beloved wife of a husband who is there to protect you. So when you use these two words, women have to be there. So I don't believe that any longer. So Nora is not ready to accept this bullshit. Okay, so she says, I don't believe that any longer. I believe that before all else, I am a reasonable human being. So this is what is very important. Okay, so woman is also a human being. She is not an animal, as Ibsen says in this drama. So just as you are, just like you are, I am also a human being. All events that I must try and become one, I know quite well toward I must think over things for myself and get to understand them. Now she's going to understand everything. The last part. Nora, no, don't. But now I am going to try. I am going to see if I can make out who is right, whether the man or the bird or I. Toward it was then it dawned upon me that for 8 years I had been living here with a strange man. Okay, so in a family, the husband and wife are not independent beings, but just strangers. So here the conclusion: the protagonist's rejection of the authority of her husband is a form of resistance against ideology of woman property relationship, as you saw there. However, gender relations in traditional Sri Lankan society have sustained close ties and cooperation between the two sexes despite carefully maintained distinctions between the two genders. Therefore, that what is called the thesis cannot be applied in wholesale in the Sri Lankan context. Consequently, the family relationships become strong and the woman began to occupy a core position in the family. So what Metananda says is that the marital relationship was reciprocal one with mutual rights and obligations. So there are certain duties to be performed by wife towards the husband and vice versa. She assisted her husband in the field or in his craft work, as the gender roles allocated to husband and wife were complementary. The subject-object dichotomy between husband and wife was inconsequential. Therefore, the traditional Sri Lankan woman is much more powerful than the woman Ibsen portrays in the drama. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jayantha. This was a wonderful presentation. And the floor is open for any clarification, questions.
Can I just give, if you are going to publish this paper, can I just give you some sort of a suggestion?
Please.
Now, if you go to your methodology section, and can you show it to me? Methodology. Yes. Okay. In methodology, your one of the objective is like to compare the Sri Lankan and Western women. I think rather than just putting that one into your objective, I think it's better you can just talk about only the, the play itself. You can take the, Nora as the character, and then how that Nora acts, and whether this one can be, applicable in our society. If it is applicable in our society, you have to just interview some mothers and see whether their positions, it is very difficult to get their, personal, very honest ideas, but still, if you have, some strategies enough to understand the, the specific character or the whatever the person you are going to interview, and you will be able to do that, right? Because you have to understand, you have to close with her and all that, or else you have to employ some other person to interview that person, and then just share their idea. Now you just said at the beginning in your conclusion that Sri Lankan women are not like that, but they are, but still Sri Lankan women are there, most of the time, even in our families, they say like, why, what the hell, have I married this person, right? At certain times they say when they are not really happy, right? But later on, they again, for the sake of their family marriage life, and also because they have children, they just give up that idea, I don't want to have this one. There are, I think 80% of the, families are there like that, but still they just, keep it as it is a tradition, right? It's a tradition as there is a marriage bond. And even in the church, and even in somewhere when we say the vow, when we read the vow, Mama, බැඳී සිටිනවා මෙයත් එක්ක එකට මොන ප්‍රශ්න තිබුණත් හිටින්න. So then therefore, even when you talk about the Western countries, and they also have the same bond, right? They can go away with it. But if the person, now Nora is an exceptional character, now can't you think about somebody who can go away from her, leave the wife and the husband and just live alone? She will just definitely repent. Right? Well, it is very difficult then to go on, we have to think about in that way also, not only, always thinking about what the feminist theories and all those said, but we can, problematize the theories also. And for me, if you can, do that sort of analysis, I think that will be wonderful, Jayant, and you can have a very good article. You can publish a very good article. I don't know. This is my personal view. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Your points are well taken.
Well presented, and the audience also will receive what you was presented. So thank you very much, and we'll go for the next presentation.
Thank you, sir.
So we'll go for the next presentation. It is to be presented by Anusha Shivalingam, and she is going to present on Islamic womanhood and victimization, a study of Sri Lankan literature in Tamil.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to explain my research studies. It is on Islamic womanhood and victimization. Islamic womanhood and victimization, a study of Sri Lankan Tamil literature in Sri Lankan literature in Tamil. First, I want to introduce on Sri Lankan literature, and before that, we know, we can use literature as a tool to raise our voices, and literature is a tool that can be used to create social transformation through ideologies, as you see in the screen. And also we know literature is always and truly influenced by social crisis and cultural wise, and also political wise, and also especially economic wise. And also when think about the literature, we can just say literature is coming through the language. When think about the language, we can identify literature as the way of language is, creating social transformation and all that for the community, and also sometimes for the other communities. When think about the Sri Lankan literature, mainly we know, Sri Lankan is a multi-ethnic country, as scholars mentioned. So mainly 3 languages are used in Sri Lankan context. First one is Sinhala, and Tamil and English. When think about the Tamil language, there are 2 main ethnic groups who use the particular language of Tamil. It is Tamil community and also Islamic community. We can also say like a Moor community. So we know in the beginning of the Sri Lankan Tamil literature, Tamil language literature, in the history, Sri Lankan Tamil literature was under the Indian, especially South Indian literature. After the 1950 and also 60, we have identified our own Tamil literature, which is truly separate with South Indian literature. So it is during the Dutch rule. But as I mentioned in the screen, we can identify the beginning so-called literature as Ila Sahitya. It means Sri Lankan Tamil literature. That's the meaning of the Ila Sahitya. So we know, as I mentioned earlier, in 1950 and 60, Sri Lankan Tamil literature was based on the ethnic crisis. Ethnic crisis means it is, there are so many themes under the ethnic crisis. There are like ethnic and also racist idea, and also nationalistic idea, and also religious perspectives is also in there. And also, I mentioned including Islamic community. It means the Muslim community and also Tamil community. I mean, both communities are affected. When think about the ethnic crisis in Sri Lanka. Sri Lankan Tamil literature, I have mentioned it was based on the social norms of the people, as I mentioned earlier, because its influence, literature is influence every way of the people and the social and political context. Sri Lankan Tamil literature exists with a unique reason. That is very important point, because there are, as I mentioned some examples. For example, the first one is the upcountry Tamil literature was separately developed. When think about the Sri Lankan Tamil literature, Tamil language literature. And also secondly, I mentioned Islamic community separately developed. It means separately developed through literature. They have unique reasons and unique points which they need to raise through their identity literature. And also, I mentioned in the end of the slide, Sri Lankan Tamil literature has been established as identity-based literature because of the political, economic, and social reasons in the history and also history of the people. When think about Sri Lankan Tamil language literature is based on identities. Clearly, we can identify 4 categories or 4 forms under which is under the Sri Lankan Tamil literature. First one is Elam struggle-based literature, very truly coming from the north and east. It is on Elam struggle. It means ethnic struggles, but there are some perspectives, mainly support for the Elam struggle and also against for the Elam struggle. So those are coming from the Elam struggle based literature. And the second one is Dalit literature. It is on very specially in Sri Lanka on caste based literature. Through the Dalit literature, so many writers are trying to raise their voices to get the equal rights for the social context. And the third one is upcountry struggle-based literature. When think about the formation of the upcountry Tamil people, they have a unique reason to raise through the literature. It is about the rights of the life of upcountry people. And also the fourth one is very especially for my analysis when think about the literature review, more community-based literature, and it is coming from the Islamic religious context and Islamic people mainly. And when think about the literature based on Islamic culture or Islamic ethnicity, we have to identify main facts of the particular literature identity. And also, I have identified through my analysis, there are some facts which coming from the more community-based literature. The first one is Tamil has been chosen as the mother tongue. The first one is. The second one is it is based on Muslim ethnic identity because always they are trying to raise their ideas to get the equal rights for their ethnic culture. And the third one is from the more community-based literature, they are trying to describe the life of the Muslim ethnic people, as I mentioned in the second point, and also the literature always asks for rights of the life of the people, and also very truly we have to accept it. It is religiously developed, and also there are some nationalistic approaches in the literature, and also there is a truly male dominance ideology in the more community-based literature. So that's why I choose this particular research problem to analyze the facts which affected for more community-based literature. When think about the history of the literature in more community-based literature, in 1980, as we know in Sri Lanka, there is a turning point because so many people have got the freedom and somewhat we can say rights to express their voices in 1980. So in generally, women got the particular rights, and sometimes we can say like it is as a freedom, and also generally Islamic women, they came forward to raise their voices to literature. The main contents in their voices, it means in their literature, it is highly identified Islamic, not only Islamic, but their womanhood. And also they have against male dominancy through their literature. And also they have against marginalization. It's mean not from only the male marginalization and also common marginalization in the society. And also when think about the marginalization which affected for the Muslim women, we can identify it's like a marginalization which is coming from the cultural and social, especially gender wise and especially sexually, and also educational wise and especially religious wise. So those are very valid reasons when think about the marginalization of the women, Muslim women context. So this is my research problem. So I tried to identify how was the Sri Lankan Tamil language literature derived by Muslim women to portray womanhood and victimization in the society. Special reference for selected poems, it's mean poetry. So my objective was to identify the Sri Lankan Tamil literature derived by Muslim women to portray womanhood and victimization, and other my additional objectives for the study is was identifying Sri Lankan Tamil literature which has established Muslim womanhood and victimization, and the second one is explain the main facts which discussed through their literature, and also the finally I tried to analyze their voices and their feelings which can be identified in their literature. So methodology was I chosen qualitative methodology. Mainly I use content analysis for the research study. So limitation, I selected some specific poems written by Islamic women, special reference for those poems. Esnuha, Asim Buhari, and Nihara Muhammad Asim and Sharmila say, when think about, so I use feminist theory mainly derived by feminist writer and very famous male activist called Periyar in India through the book of Pen Vidudalai. And especially Periyar is talking about the equal rights of the women. It means we can categorize the particular feminism approach under the liberal feminism, not for the philosophical feminism. So analysis discuss unique issues. Most Islamic women do not have minimum freedom, cultural violence and also structural violence. Women has somewhat intervened to speak freely and boldly about some unique issues. So as I mentioned, I selected poet Anar and these particular poets, and especially when go through with my analysis, I have identified they have discussed some unique issues. Especially they have discussed about early marriage and especially on dowry issue, and also educational freedom and the cultural violence and any kind of violence that affected from their freedom. And anyway, so many people can't read Tamil, and also the machine is machine is also can't read the Tamil. That's why the font was different. And I can remember because I done the analysis by Nuha poems. By Nuha poems, she is talking about male gaze, which affected Muslim women freedom. She nicely explained males are always trying to identify women as a beautiful concept. It means, she said, you can't identify as women as flowers. Women as flowers, and why you can't identify women as women only. That's the main thing which is explained in Nuha's poetry. And also, I got a selected poem, unknown poem actually. For the particular poem, through the particular poem, the unknown poet is trying to explain the idea of how they have affected from the labor migration, because of the poverty they need to go for the Middle East country to working as labors, and they have affected, and also sometimes through the poem the female unknown poet is trying to say we lost our virgina because of dowry issue, because they are going to collect some money and things for their dowry, but they lost their virgina. And also because of the time issue, I just passed those analyses, but I can say mainly through all my selected poetry, they have clearly mentioned about the how impact for a daughter about their about her mother migration, and also the dowry issue, and they lost virgina, and the male gaze ideology in the Islamic context and all that, and also sometimes they have sexually abused in the particular so-called context. And my conclusions, so I think through my analysis, I try to identify and try to explain the idea. So it is also, I have put it to my conclusion, and finally, I'm very sorry. Finally, I want to say there is, firstly, I think there is no need any recommendation for the particular studies, but finally, I mention like the people, every people, and also every women need to rise to raise their voices, and they should educate it, and also we have to the society, the people have give the rights for women, to every women to raise their voices through literature. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anusha. Of course, from the very beginning, so you were explaining the situation of the women, Camille and Moore, and you were comparing how their feelings and how their lifestyle and so on. So it's basically, so we had two feministic researchers. I think so. You may have questions, comments, or inquiries. So its flow is open for that aspect. Yes.
How did you connect your research findings with the liberal feminism theory? You mentioned that you use the right? I got your question. And you mentioned about the Indian feminist who is she? Palee. She is lately connect with the theory. She has developed lately male activist. Okay, right. Because for your first question, I choose liberal feminism because, in the feminist theory, in the beginning, I mean, for so many feminists try to get the freedom for education. Secondly, they have moved to liberal idea. It means they ask equal rights for women, equal rights for every context and content. And also finally, there is another feminist approach which can identify, which can called as philosophical feminism. It means we can talk anything about women that all are in the male imagination. So for the particular study, because I'm talking about the Islamic women rights, then I choose liberal feminism for the analysis as a theory.
Okay.
literature? Because it's
for the particular this study, I just done content analysis, but as a writer, I can sometimes as a researcher, I can say like some
minimum freedom.
From my literature review, sorry sir, and so I mean. Some women are, as I mentioned in the analysis, they are trying to raise their voices for some particular sides, right? Sometimes they are writing poems, but without their names, something like that. Because in Islamic context, male dominance, we can't compare with Sinhala context or Tamil context. So they are trying to explain their idea, and especially 1990, after 1990. So as usual, if someone is criticizing the Islamic nationalist idea, so normally and generally Islamic, most of people are against for the particular idea. As likewise for these particular women, most of male and sometimes women also, they have criticized this particular context, especially when they discuss, especially on domestic violence and something like that, because we are accepting now generally in the Sri Lankan context. That's why.
Just to give some kind of sort of a suggestion, to improve your research if you are going to publish it. And for me, I feel like your research methodology and your objectives does not match with the findings. It is always there. I think last time also I saw you, because Puta, please remember, now you have to have a conceptual framework, like what kind of methodology you use, and that from that methodology, what kind of, data emanating and what kind of research question is related to that. This is always there. This is all, it should be there in order to have this validity. If the findings is not valid enough, you cannot say that the research is valid, right? So therefore, now, if you are going to collect the data through some means of methodological analysis or methodological questionnaires or whatever, now you have said, now here you have used some poetry, and then you have given a big, kind of a literature review about what is literature. You don't need that, because you are taking too much time when you are talking about literature. When you are talking about literature, also you have to think about not only socio, political, cultural, economic, but psychological. That is personal. Psychological is the most important. Now these poets have written their psychological, their personal feelings about how they feel about the, how they are treated by the women and how like that. So they have to, the psychology is the most important part here, I think. So therefore you can talk about the other themes also. I think for you, first have a kind of I think not only for you, but all other researchers, junior researchers, what I say is, when you are doing a research, please have the, kind of a research conceptual framework. What are your objectives, or what are your research questions? How you use, methodological, methodology, like question instruments that you use to find the answers to these questions, and then how you discuss those kinds of things. Because always, there is a kind of a gap between these elements. So therefore I think එහෙම වෙනකොට පුතා වෙන්නේ අර research එකෙන් අපි මොකද්ද research එකට භාවිතා කරන instrument එක, ඒ instrument එකෙන් අපි කියන දේ objective එක මයින්වද අපි? හරි, අපි ඒක මයින්නේ කොහොමද? ඒක ඇනලයිස් කරන්නේ කොහොමද? ඔය ටික අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම තියෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒක එහෙම වෙන්නේ නැත්නම් අපි කතා කරන්නේ වෙන දෙයක්, ඔබ්ජෙක්ටිව් එක වෙන දෙයක්, ඩිස්කෂන් එක වෙන දෙයක්, රිසර්ච් එක වෙන දෙයක්. අන්න ඒකින්ද මම හිතන්නේ ඒක වැදගත් වෙනවා. ඔයා හොඳයි, ඔයාගේ රිසර්ච් එකත් ගොඩාක් හොඳයි. It is මම හිතන්නේ මේවා ගැන ගොඩාක් අය කතා කරනවා කියලා, especially the Muslim අයගේව. Then ඉතින් just you can carry on අර තව ටිකක් limit කරන්න. limit කරලා අර ගොඩක් අර රංජස මෙයාගේ පළල්නේ broadනේ, broad ගැන කතා කරන්නේ specifically ඔයාගේ theory එක මොකක්ද? ඒ theory වලට මොනවද ඔයා එකතු කරගන්නේ? ඒ ටික කොහොමද කරන්නේ? ඒ ටික කොහොමද analyze කරන්නේ? ඒ ටික ඊට පස්සේ research එක කියන්නේ.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
But wonderful, huh?
Thank you.
I have doubt about the originality of your studies. Have someone done on this topic before?
There are some research, but very few, one or two, some Muslim, especially the scholars from Islamic community. But I found two research actually. I refer for my study, and those are from when go through with their analysis. I was able to identify some, the male gaze on the discuss point in the poems. That's why I try to, and my selected poems are different than their selected areas. So I try to give my idea and especially compare with Periyar feminist activism theory.
What is the knowledge gap in your study?
Okay, so as I answer for your first question, and especially in Sri Lanka, they don't. I mean, so many people haven't very big idea about Sri Lankan Tamil literature, especially when think about the language dominancy, especially. And I have done some pilot studies before go for this particular analysis, and when go through with the literature, then as I mentioned earlier, some people have tried to analyze the particular facts, but they have some particular, the male gaze ideologies to analyze the facts. The one point is that, and another point is, no any very depth research about identifying the true feeling about women, especially marginalized women in Sri Lanka.
Thank you. And regarding your methodology, you have applied the content analysis. How did you incorporate your objectives and content analysis with analysis?
My objective was I try to analysis, especially the women are talking about their victimization and womanhood, and what are those things, and what are the factors they have affected. So those are my basic objective of the studies. Then I choose I need a theory to analyze the so-called facts. Then I choose the feminist theory driven by Periyar, who work on equal rights for women, especially equal rights for women education, especially marginalized women education.
And which types of content analysis? You said that you have employed for content analysis.
Yes.
Did you apply discourse analysis or something like that?
So there are so many approaches when working on a content analysis. So I use the particular theory and go through with the points. I mean, they are trying to say. I apply theory, Periyar theory with the selected poetries. So it's like an approach and the perspective to analysis the poetry. We can we can use Marxism theory and the feminist theory and so many things. And I use Periyar's theory only. Because I think for when you think about the freedom of the Islamic women context, I think Periyar is a very important character who introduced so many theories and things for the society which we need to learn and also for especially marginalized women in Sri Lanka, they don't know about Periyar and what was his fight and something like that. Then I try to identify and analysis from my literature review and also the analysis also about Periyar and the theory.
And what is the methodology?
Qualitative analysis.
Qualitative analysis, what are the instruments?
Through qualitative analysis, I use content analysis only.
Oh.
But if I can develop my research, I can, go for some research methods, especially interweaving. So we can, when select the particular some other tools as well, then I can, analysis the some other analysis part, I think, and the particular research area.
Is there any theory, when we are applying content analysis, we are using intent techniques?
Content analysis, we don't need.
But you mentioned that.
Not the content analysis. I said I can select the particular research method for another part of the study. Then I can compare with the content analysis and also the data analysis.
You have to be clear about your method.
Yes. No, sir, for the particular this study, I choose only content analysis. For this particular analysis. Okay.
Any more questions? It's a very good presentation, and it seems through the questions that the audience asked that they had many questions, so it well received by the audience. Thank you very much, Anusha Shivalingam, for your excellent presentation.
Thank you very much.
And there are more presentations to be done, but it seems that those presenters are absent today. Therefore, we have to close this session for the day. And I must be thankful to Dr. Sugat Senarat, the head of the department, and Dr. Pradeep Veerasinghe, senior lecturer of the Department of Mass Media, Sri Palee campus, for giving me immense support to carry on the duty as the chair of this panel. And also the all presenters, KP Gamage, Kumesh Prabhashane Gamage, and also Dr. Jayantha Vannisinghe and Anusha Shivalingam, who did marvelous presentations and of course got excellent feedback from the audience also. So thank you very much all, and a special thank to all the audience who also gave a tremendous support to, of course, carry on this session. So thank you all, and herewith, so we'll wind up this session. Thank you very much.
Dear scholars, and this is the end of the session, and we are indeed very much grateful to our panel members, and we are aware that many demands are made on your time, sir, and accepting our invitation to be a part of this symposium is an indication of your keenness to be with us and share your expertise with us. So therefore, we thank you wholeheartedly for that kind gestures of yours. And I also take this opportunity to thank all the presenters for their excellent presentation and academic contribution. A big thank goes to all those who help us in numerous ways to make this effort success. Wish you all a brilliant future ahead. And after this, you all can join with the symposium closing remark. Yes, we know it's a hard and long day for all of you, but I believe it's a more productive day. We are close to the symposium closing remark, but before that, we need to proceed with the awarding the certificates of the symposium. For that, I cordially invite Professor Ranjan Vidyarachi, former rector, Sri Palee campus, to the stage, to the entrance, and also Conference Chair, Ms. Roli Batuangala, and Conference Secretary, Ms. Kalani Bambasiri.
to handle the proceedings. Right. First we present the certificates to the presenters, BCB Fernando, Kunishi Prabhashin Gamage. I think she's joining through the online. Dr. Jayanti Madisinghe. Ms. Anusha Sivalingam. Now we proceed with the panels. Technical session 1, panel 1, panel chair, Professor T.D. Veerasinghe. Panel member, Professor Sri Ranjan. Professor K.B. Banapala. Technical session 2, panel chair, Professor Ranjan Vidyarachi. I think Ms. Kalani Dharmasiri, you can present the certificate, right? Oh, Ms. Rodi Batwangala, yes? Yeah. Ms. Rodi Batwangala, please. Thank you, Miss. Thank you. Technical session number 2, panel member, Dr. Pradeep Veerasinghe. Dr. Subhat M. Sanrat. ITM, now we have to award the certificates to the other contributors. IT and Publicity Committee, Chair Ms. Prasarni Kaluarachi. Ms. Kunish Prabhashini, once again. Mr. Dilan Darshana. Ms. Anusha Sivalingam. Mr. Rajesh Vidyarachi. Ms. Vachika Ruchini. Mr. Pradeep Alutwatu. Once again, Mr. Chatra Fernando. Mr. Samal Karyavazam. Mr. Danushka Kalutarage. Mr. Shanika Sanjeeva. Mr. Vinsara Kanchana. Award the certificates to the editorial committee. Chief Editor, Dr. Pradeep M. Veerasinghe. Sub-editors, Dr. Vatsala Atukorani. Ms. Chaturika Nibla with the inauguration committee. Inauguration chair, Mr. Damit Ittamagodu. Nayana Sodira. Mr. Amulya Lukumanagi. Ms. Nilusha Vimalasena. Ms. D.S. Pumali. Mr. Dilan Sudadit. Mr. Iman Rangana. Mr. Ruwan Prashant. Now we have for the final 2 certificates, Conference Secretary, Ms. Kalani Dharmasiri. And finally, Conference Chair, Ms. Rulini Badwangala. Thank you, Professor Anjan Vidyarachi, sir. Now we are actually in the final or the last part of the our symposium, which is the closing remark. All great things in the world have their own endings. It's time to say goodbye for today. Before that, I would like to thank all of you who joined us to make this day a success, especially Professor Soli Fan from China. And Professor, thank you so much for your valuable time and your contribution. So you spend the entire your time with our entire symposium. And Professor Aguiaram from Jaffna University, and all the others. So finally, Annual Research Symposium 2022, Sri Palee Campus, University of Colombo is officially ended. Have a nice day and goodbye, all of you. I'm Chatri Fernando, closing the ceremony from Audio Visual Unit, Sri Palee Campus, University of Colombo.